The emergency room doors exploded open at 11:47 p.m., and Raina Cross knew someone was dying before she even saw the blood. The gurney screamed across linoleum, trauma team shouting, monitors shrieking. A man's chest split open like a butcher's mistake. His heart had stopped twice already, but nobody was looking at him. They were looking at the sky. Through the glass ceiling of Black Ridge Medical Center, rotor blades chopped the darkness into pieces. Military helicopters, 3 of them, descending like steel angels hunting something, or someone. The lights flickered, the building shook, and Dr. Marcus Trent, chief of emergency medicine, spun toward Raina with a face like thunder. "You out now!" But the radio on his belt crackled first. "We're looking for Specialist Raina Cross. Repeat, Specialist Cross. This is a code red federal extraction." Raina's hands didn't shake. They never did. Not anymore. But her pulse. God. Her pulse hammered like it remembered things her mind had tried to bury. Marcus stared. The nurses stared. And somewhere above them, the rotors got louder. If you want to know how a ghost became the only one they couldn't afford to lose, if you want to see what happens when the weakest link turns out to be unbreakable, then stay with me until the end. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Because some truths, they don't stay buried forever. Raina had been invisible for 3 months. Not literally. She showed up on time, filed her charts, responded when spoken to, which wasn't often. But at Black Ridge Medical Center, in the beating heart of Boston's trauma district, invisibility wasn't about being unseen. It was about being dismissed, forgotten, treated like furniture that breathed. "Cross, grab the mop. 3rd bay." Someone puked. That was Nurse Supervisor Diane Halford, a woman whose voice could strip paint off walls. She didn't look up from her tablet when she said it. Didn't need to. Raina was the newest hire, the quietest presence, the one who never pushed back. Perfect for grunt work. Raina nodded, grabbed the mop bucket, and rolled it toward Bay 3 without a word. Around her, the ER hummed with organized chaos. Residents barking orders, monitors beeping in overlapping rhythms, the metallic tang of antiseptic mixing with sweat and fear. It was a Tuesday night, which meant moderately busy. Fridays were war zones. Tuesdays were just grinding. "Hey, Cross." She paused, turned. Dr. Julian Voss leaned against the nurse's station, arms crossed, perfect teeth flashing in what might have been a smile if it reached his eyes. He was young, handsome in that Ivy League way, and knew it. Worse, he used it. "You do know we hired you as a nurse, right? Not a janitor?" A few others laughed. Raina's expression didn't change. "I know." "Then maybe act like one. Protocol says cleaning staff handles biohazard spills. You're not a maid." He said it like he was doing her a favor, like he was teaching her something. Raina glanced at the mop, then back at him. "Cleaning staff went home an hour ago. Someone needs to do it." Voss shrugged. "Not my problem. But sure, knock yourself out. Just don't expect me to write you a reference for Martyr of the Month." More laughter. Raina turned back toward Bay 3 and kept walking. Behind her, someone muttered, "She's so weird. Like, why doesn't she ever talk back?" "Because she's got nothing to say," another voice replied. "I heard she barely passed her boards. Probably got hired because they needed bodies." Raina's jaw tightened, just barely. She mopped the floor in silence, rinsed the bucket, and returned it to the supply closet. When she came back out, Diane was waiting. "You done playing Cinderella?" "Yes." "Good. Go stock the crash carts, all of them, and check the expiration dates this time. Last week you missed 2 expired EpiPens." Raina opened her mouth, then closed it. She hadn't stocked the carts last week. That was someone else. But correcting Diane was like arguing with a hurricane. It didn't listen and you just got wet. "I'll check them." "Yeah, you do that." Diane walked off, heels clicking like a countdown. Raina exhaled slowly, rolled her shoulders, and headed toward the supply room. On the way, she passed Dr. Marcus Trent's office. The door was open. He was inside on the phone, pacing like a caged animal. "I don't care what the board says. We need more trauma surgeons, not more nurses. Half of them can't tell a scalpel from a butter knife." Raina kept walking. She'd heard worse. The thing about being invisible was that you heard everything. People talked around you like you weren't there. said things they'd never say to your face. After 3 months, Raina had a pretty complete picture of Blackridge Medical Center's internal politics. She knew which doctors were sleeping with which nurses. She knew who was skimming supplies. She knew that doctor. Voss had failed his boards twice before passing, despite his Ivy League pedigree. She knew that Diane's daughter was in rehab for the 3rd time, and that Marcus was 1 lawsuit away from losing his position. She knew all of it, and she said nothing. Because saying something meant being seen, and being seen meant questions. Questions meant answers, and answers meant the past catching up. Raina had spent 6 years making sure the past stayed buried. The first crash cart was fine. The second had an expired IV kit. She replaced it, logged it, moved on. The third was in the pediatric wing. Quieter tonight, thank God. And she took her time checking each drawer, each medication, each piece of equipment. This was the part of the job she didn't mind. The methodical, precise work. The kind that didn't require talking to anyone. She was just finishing when she heard footsteps behind her. "You're thorough." Raina turned. "Doctor." Sarah Mendez stood there, arms full of patient files, looking tired but not unkind. She was one of the pediatric attendings. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. She'd been polite to Raina from day one, which made her an outlier. "Just doing my job." "I know. I've noticed." Sarah shifted the files. "Look, I don't know what your story is, and I'm not asking, but I wanted you to know that some of us see how hard you work, how much you pick up the slack. It doesn't go unnoticed." Raina didn't know what to say to that. She settled for a nod. Sarah smiled faintly. "Keep your head up, Cross. This place chews people up, but you seem tougher than you look." She walked away before Raina could respond. Raina stood there for a moment, holding an expired saline bag, feeling something strange and uncomfortable in her chest. Recognition. Even a small amount of it felt foreign now. She shook it off and moved to the next cart. By the time she finished all 4, her shift was almost over. She was just about to clock out when the radio at the nurses' station crackled. "Incoming. EMS, 2 minutes out. MVA, multiple traumas, 1 critical." Motor vehicle accident. Raina's hand stilled on the supply drawer. Around her, the ER shifted gears, residents pulling on gloves, nurses prepping gurneys, someone shouting for more O negative. She closed the drawer and moved toward the trauma bay. "Cross, what are you doing?" Diane's voice cut through the noise. "Your shift's over." "I know." "Then go home." Raina didn't move. "You're short-staffed. I can help." "We don't need help from someone who can't handle a simple card inventory without screwing up. Go. Home." It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. And in Diane's world, orders were absolute. Raina held her stare for 3 seconds, long enough to see the flicker of annoyance turn into something sharper, then nodded once and turned toward the lockers. She was halfway there when the doors burst open. The gurney came in fast. Too fast. The paramedic riding on top was still doing compressions, sweat dripping off his chin, face red with exertion. His partner was bagging, squeezing oxygen into unresponsive lungs, and both of them looked like they'd been fighting for the last 20 minutes. Male, mid-40s, blunt force trauma to the chest, ejected from vehicle, V-fib arrest at the scene, shocked twice, no response, lost his pulse 3 minutes ago. "Get him in Bay 1 now." Marcus was already moving, pulling on a gown, snapping orders like gunfire. "Someone page cardiothoracic, get me an ultrasound, and where the hell is my defibrillator?" "Charging!" a resident yelled. "Not fast enough." Marcus grabbed the paddles himself, pressed them to the man's bare chest. The skin was mottled, bruised, ribs clearly broken. "Clear." The body jerked. The monitor blipped once, flatlined. "Again, 200, clear." Another jolt, nothing. The line stayed flat, that terrible monotone scream filling the room. "Epi, 1 milligram, push it now." "Doctor, he's got a tension pneumothorax, right side. His trachea is deviated." "I can see that. Someone get me a chest tube kit." "We don't have one prepped." "Then prep one. And someone check his airway. I think the tube's too shallow." "I'm trying, but don't try. Do it." Chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. Raina stood just outside the bay, half hidden behind a supply cart, watching through the glass. The man on the table was dying. Not might die. Was dying. His lips were turning blue-gray. His chest wasn't rising right, too flat on one side, and they were wasting precious seconds arguing about equipment. She counted in her head. 90 seconds since his last dose of Ipi. 2 minutes since he'd had a pulse. Brain damage started at 4 minutes without oxygen. They had maybe 90 seconds left before this turned from a save to a recovery mission. She saw it in the way Marcus fumbled the intubation tube, his hands shaking just slightly. The way the resident couldn't find a vein for the IV kept missing, blood smearing on gloves. The way no one was actually in control of the room. They were reacting, not leading. Her feet moved before her brain caught up. She walked into Bay 1, straight past the yellow line that marked the sterile field. "Cross, get out!" Diane's voice was a whip crack from the doorway. Raina ignored her. She moved to the head of the bed, eyes scanning the monitor, the patient's color, the way his chest moved, or didn't. No pulse, no rhythm. Airway compromised. She grabbed the laryngoscope from the resident's trembling hands. "Hey!" "Move," Raina said. Quiet, firm. Not loud, but something in her tone made the resident step back without thinking. Raina tilted the man's head back, inserted the scope with one smooth motion, visualized the vocal cords, there, right there, and slid the endotracheal tube home in less than 30 seconds. She attached the bag valve mask, squeezed twice. The chest rose. Both sides this time. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Marcus's voice was thunder now, fury and disbelief mixed together. Raina didn't look at him. Her eyes were locked on the monitor. Still flat line, still no pulse. But the airway was secured. That was step 1. Step 2 was the real problem. She reached for the scalpel tray without asking. "He needs a needle decompression, right now." "I'll decide what he needs." His right lungs collapsed. The pressure's crushing his heart. He's got maybe 90 seconds before permanent brain damage. Raina picked up a 14-gauge needle, her hand steady as stone. "I can do it." "You're a nurse, not a trauma surgeon." "I know what I am." Raina's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. She just looked at Marcus, and for one strange, suspended moment, the entire room went still. People stopped moving, stopped talking. Because there was something in her eyes, something cold and certain and utterly unshakable. "Do you want him to live or not?" Marcus stared at her. His jaw worked. She could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Liability versus life, protocol versus reality. Then finally, "Do it." Raina didn't hesitate. She palpated the man's chest, found the second intercostal space mid-clavicular line, and drove the needle in at a precise 45-degree angle. There was resistance, skin, muscle, pleura, then a sudden give. A hiss of air rushed out, loud in the sudden silence. The pressure released. The man's chest expanded. The monitor beeped, once, twice. A rhythm, weak, but there. "I've got a pulse," the resident shouted, almost laughing with relief. 60 over 40, but it's there. "Hang another liter of saline wide open," Raina said, already moving to check the IV lines. "And get the chest tube kit ready. That needle's a temporary fix. He needs a proper tube in the next 10 minutes, or the lung will collapse again." She said it like she was giving a weather report, calm, factual. And for a moment, everyone just obeyed. The nurses moved. The resident scrambled for the kit. Even Marcus stood there, watching her like she was a stranger who'd just walked into his ER wearing someone else's face. Then Raina stepped back, stripped off her gloves, and set them in the trash. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was even. But inside, something old and cold was stirring, something she'd promised herself she'd never touch again. "Cross." Marcus's voice was different now, quieter, almost cautious. "Where did you learn that?" "Doesn't matter." "Does to me." Raina met his eyes. For a second, she almost told him, almost let the words out, but then Diane's voice cut through the moment like a blade. "Dr. Trent, we need to move him to ICU. Now, they're ready for him." Yeah, do it." Marcus didn't look away from Raina. "Cross." "My office. 5 minutes." It wasn't a request. She followed him down the hall, past the stairs, past the whispers that started the moment she left the trauma bay. His office was small, cluttered with journals and coffee cups, Smelled like old paper and stress. He closed the door and turned on her. You want to explain what just happened out there? I helped save a patient. You performed a procedure you're not authorized to do. That's not helping. That's liability. That's my license on the line, Cross. Raina said nothing. Marcus dragged a hand through his hair, and she noticed for the first time how tired he looked. Not just tonight, bone tired. The kind that came from years of fighting battles he wasn't sure he could win. Look, I don't know what your deal is. You show up 3 months ago, you do your job, you keep your head down. Fine. I don't ask questions, but that... He jabbed a finger toward the ER. That was not protocol. That was not in your scope. You just performed a field procedure that most residents wouldn't attempt without supervision. And if that man dies, or if his family decides to sue, you just put this entire hospital at risk. Do you understand that? He's not going to die. You don't know that. I do. The certainty in her voice stopped him cold. Marcus studied her face, really looked at her for what might have been the first time since she'd started. Took in the way she stood, feet shoulder-width apart, weight balanced, hands loose at her sides. The way her eyes tracked movement in the hall beyond the window. The way she seemed perpetually ready for something no one else could see. Who are you? He asked quietly. Raina's throat tightened. Nobody. Bullshit. Nobody moves like that. Nobody stays that calm under pressure unless they've been trained. And I mean seriously trained, not just nursing school clinical rotations. He stepped closer. So I'll ask again. Who are you? Before she could answer, the building shook. Not an earthquake. Not thunder. Something else. Something mechanical and deep and getting louder by the second. They both looked up. Through the window, the sky was turning dark with motion, shapes cutting through the night, running lights blinking, rotors slicing the air into pieces. Helicopters. Military helicopters. 3 of them, coming in low and fast. The kind of formation that said, federal and urgent and don't ask questions. Marcus's radio crackled on his belt. Dr. Trent, we have a situation. Multiple armed personnel entering the main lobby. Security's standing down. They're asking for someone by name. Marcus grabbed the radio. Who? There was a pause. Then, Raina Cross. The room went silent. Marcus turned to her slowly, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. What did you do? Raina's pulse was hammering now, adrenaline flooding her system for the first time in years. Her hands, still steady, always steady, curled into fists at her sides. The old instincts were waking up, the ones she'd buried under 3 months of mopping floors and stocking carts and being invisible. Nothing. Then why the hell is the military here looking for you? She didn't answer, couldn't answer, because the truth was a thing with teeth, and once you let it out, it didn't go back in the cage. It just kept biting. The radio crackled again. Dr. Trent, they're coming up the main stairs. East Wing. They say this is a federal extraction. Code red authorization. They want her now. Marcus's eyes widened. Extraction? Raina closed her eyes. Took 1 breath. 2. Felt the old armor sliding back into place, piece by piece. Then opened them again and looked at him with something that might have been regret. Or exhaustion. Or both. I need to go. You're not going anywhere until you tell me. The door slammed open. 3 men in full tactical gear filled the doorway, rifles slung across their chests, body armor marked with insignia Raina recognized instantly. Delta Force. Tier 1 operators, the kind of soldiers who didn't exist on paper and solved problems that never made the news. Her stomach dropped. The lead man, broad-shouldered, buzz-cut, face like carved granite, locked eyes on her with the kind of recognition that came from shared experience, from knowing someone in the place where normal people didn't go. Specialist Cross. Not nurse. Not Raina. Specialist. She straightened without meaning to. Old habits, old reflexes. Her spine went rigid, shoulders back, chin level. The posture of someone who'd spent years standing at attention. Sir, we need you. Now. Federal Emergency Extraction Authorization Code Sierra 79er. You're being activated under Title 10 emergency protocols. Marcus stepped between them, and Raina almost wanted to warn him, don't get between a Delta operator and his mission, but he was already talking. Hold on, you can't just barge in here and... Doctor. The man's voice was flat, final, the kind of tone that ended conversations. This is a federal emergency under Department of Defense jurisdiction. Specialist Cross is being activated for a critical operation. If you interfere, you will be detained under the Patriot Act. Step aside. This is a hospital. You can't just step aside. The other two operators shifted slightly, hands moving toward their weapons. Not threatening, just ready. Marcus looked at Reyna, and she could see everything in his eyes. The questions, the disbelief, the anger at being pushed around in his own hospital. But she didn't have time to explain. Didn't have time for anything. She stepped past him. Wait. Marcus grabbed her arm, fingers tight. You owe me an explanation. You owe this hospital an explanation. Reyna looked down at his hand, then back up at his face. Her voice was soft, almost kind, but there was steel underneath. No, I don't. She pulled free and followed the soldiers into the hall. Behind her, Marcus stood frozen, hands still raised, speechless. Around them, the ER had gone completely silent, every face turned, every eye wide, every conversation dead. Diane stood at the nurse's station, mouth open, tablet forgotten in her hand. Dr. Voss was pressed against the wall, looking at Reyna like she'd just peeled off a mask. Even the patients in the waiting room were staring. Reyna didn't look at any of them. She just kept walking, boots echoing on linoleum, the soldiers flanking her like an honor guard. Or a capture team. Hard to tell which. They took the stairs two at a time, boots pounding in rhythm. Nobody spoke. At the fourth floor landing, one of the operators keyed his radio. Package secure, moving to extraction point. Package. That's what she was now. Reyna almost smiled. They pushed through the rooftop access door and the wind hit her like a wall. The helicopters were there, 3 Blackhawks, rotors still spinning at idle, downdraft flattening everything, lights cutting the darkness into harsh geometric shapes. The lead soldier gestured toward the nearest bird. Get in, we'll brief en route. Reyna climbed aboard. The interior was cramped, smelled like fuel and sweat, and something sharper, blood. There was a combat medic strapped into the corner, working over a figure on a stretcher. The figure was covered in trauma bandages, chest wrapped tight, EV lines running everywhere, an oxygen mask fogging with shallow breaths. Unconscious. Barely alive. The soldier climbed in after her, slammed the door. The pilot didn't wait. Throttle up, collective pulled, and they lifted off immediately, Boston dropping away below them in a grid of lights and shadow. Reyna looked at the man on the stretcher. Really looked, and her breath stopped. She knew that face. Older now, scarred, half hidden under oxygen tubing and dried blood. But she knew it. Knew it like she knew her own reflection, like she knew the sound of gunfire, like she knew the weight of a body going limp in her arms. No, she whispered. The medic glanced up, eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion. You cross? She nodded, numb. Thank God. Because he's dying, and he won't let anyone else touch him. Keeps pulling out his lines, fighting the sedation, saying your name over and over. The medic leaned back against the bulkhead, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Said you were the only one who could save him. Said nobody else had the hands. Reyna's hands started to shake. For the first time in 6 years, they actually shook. Tremors running through her fingers, up her wrists, into her arms. She clenched them into fists, but it didn't stop. Because the man on the stretcher, the one who was supposed to be dead, buried under a white cross in Arlington, name carved into stone, was Captain Ethan Kane, her team leader, her friend. The man she'd watched bleed out in a desert 6 years ago while insurgent fire chewed up the dirt around them and she screamed for a medevac that came too late. The man whose death she'd carried like a stone in her chest every single day since. And he was here, alive, dying, looking at her with eyes that barely focused, pupils blown, lips moving behind the oxygen mask, rasping out words she couldn't hear over the rotors. She leaned in close, pulled the mask down just an inch. His hand, bloody, trembling, reached for hers. The fingers were ice cold. Ray, I'm here. I'm here, Ethan. His lips quirked. Might have been a smile, might have been a grimace. Knew you'd come. Only one. Only trust. Your hands. Then his eyes rolled back, the monitor started screaming, and the medic yelled, He's crashing! VFib! Reyna didn't think. didn't hesitate, didn't let herself feel anything except the mission. She grabbed the med kit, ripped it open, and fell into the rhythm she'd sworn she'd never use again. The rhythm that had kept soldiers alive in places where God didn't go. The rhythm that had earned her a reputation as the medic who didn't lose people. The rhythm that had made her a ghost when she finally walked away. "Start compressions," she snapped at the medic. Her voice was different now. Command voice. The one that made people move without questioning. The medic moved. Raina's hands flew, checking the IV lines, pulling drugs, calculating dosages in her head, while the helicopter banked hard and the whole world tilted. Ethan's chest wasn't rising right, fluid in the lungs. She could hear it, that wet rattle that meant bleeding somewhere internal. He needs a chest tube, now. "We don't have—" "Yes, you do. Bottom of the kit. Move." The medic dug through the supplies, came up with the kit, hands shaking. Raina took it, assembled it in seconds. Didn't bother with local anesthetic. Ethan was too far gone to feel it. She found the landmark, made the incision, drove the tube between his ribs with the kind of precision that came from doing it 100 times under fire. Blood and fluid gushed out. The monitor stabilized, just barely. "Epi, 0.5 milligrams. Push it slow." She worked, hands moving on autopilot, while the helicopter screamed through the night sky. Outside the windows, the city lights gave way to darkness. They were heading out over the Atlantic, towards something. Raina didn't know what, didn't care. Her entire world had narrowed to the man on the stretcher and keeping him alive. The lead operator leaned over. "Specialist, we're 10 minutes from the carrier. Can he make it?" "He'll make it." "You sound sure." "I am." She looked up, met his eyes. "Because I didn't save him 6 years ago. I'm not losing him twice." The operator nodded once, then turned back to the cockpit. Raina returned to Ethan, checking vitals, adjusting drips, doing everything she could with limited supplies in a flying metal box. His pulse was thready, but there. Blood pressure barely holding. She put her hand on his, squeezed gently. "Stay with me, Ethan. You don't get to die. Not after coming back from the dead. That's just bad form." His fingers twitched. Might have been intentional. She chose to believe it was. Below them, she caught sight of lights on the water, a massive gray shape cutting through the Atlantic. Aircraft carrier. The USS Ronald Reagan, if she had to guess. The helicopter angled toward it, dropping fast, and Raina braced herself against the stretcher to keep Ethan stable. They hit the deck hard. The door slammed open, and a full trauma team was waiting. More soldiers, more medics, a portable gurney with equipment that made the helicopter kit look like a toy. They moved like a machine, transferring Ethan, hooking up monitors, shouting vitals and orders. Raina tried to follow, but the lead operator caught her arm. "Not yet. He's got the best team in the Navy working on him now. You did your job. He's stable." The operator gestured toward the superstructure. "Admiral wants to see you." "I don't care what the Admiral wants. I need to—" "Specialist." His voice went hard. "That wasn't a request. You're still active duty under emergency protocols. The Admiral wants to see you. Now." Raina stared at him, wanted to argue, wanted to punch him, wanted to run after Ethan and make sure he actually lived. But the operator was right. She was active again, which meant the rules applied. The chain of command applied. She hated it, but she followed. They led her across the deck, through a hatch, down corridors that smelled like oil and metal and the ocean. Sailors moved aside as they passed, staring at this woman in blood-soaked scrubs being escorted by Delta operators. She ignored them, focused on breathing, on not letting the adrenaline crash hit her yet. They stopped at a door marked Flag Operations. The operator knocked once, opened it without waiting for an answer. "Sir, Specialist Cross." The man behind the desk stood. He was older, mid-60s, gray hair cropped military short, uniform crisp despite the hour. 3 stars on his collar, Vice Admiral. His eyes were sharp, assessing, and when he looked at Raina, she had the uncomfortable feeling he saw straight through her. "Specialist Cross, thank you for coming." Like she'd had a choice. "Sir, please sit." He gestured to a chair. Raina sat because her legs were starting to shake now that the adrenaline was fading. The Admiral sat across from her, folded his hands on the desk. "I'll get straight to it. Captain Kane was part of a classified operation in Yemen. His team was ambushed 4 days ago. He was the only survivor. He managed to reach extraction, but he was in bad shape. Wouldn't let anyone operate on him except you. Reyna's throat tightened. He was supposed to be dead. He was, officially. The Admiral's expression didn't change. 6 years ago, you were told he died in that firefight in Afghanistan. You were told there was nothing you could have done. That was a lie. The words hit her like a physical blow. Reyna stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. What? Captain Kane survived, barely. He was medevaced to a black site facility, underwent experimental treatment, spent 8 months in recovery. Then he was reassigned to a classified unit. We let everyone believe he was dead because the mission required it, including you. Reyna couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 6 years. 6 years of carrying the guilt, the nightmares, the weight of thinking she'd failed. And it was all a lie. Why? Her voice came out raw. Why tell me that? Why let me think? Because you were getting out. Your enlistment was up. You'd made it clear you were done. And Captain Kane's unit couldn't afford loose ends. People who knew he was alive. The Admiral leaned forward. I'm not here to defend that decision, Specialist. I'm here to tell you that he specifically requested you when things went sideways. Said you were the best combat medic he'd ever seen. Said if anyone could keep him alive, it was you. Reyna's hands were shaking again. She pressed them against her thighs, hard. What happened in Yemen? That's classified. He's dying because of something classified? He's dying because someone betrayed his team. The Admiral's voice went cold. Someone high up, someone with access to operational details. They walked into an ambush that shouldn't have been possible. 7 operators dead. Captain Kane barely made it out. Who? We're working on that. The Admiral stood. In the meantime, you're being kept on active status until this is resolved. You'll remain on the carrier, assist with Captain Kane's care, and make yourself available for debriefing. Understood? It wasn't really a question. Reyna stood, swaying slightly. Understood. Good. Your quarters are being prepared. Someone will show you the way. Dismissed. She turned to leave, got halfway to the door, then stopped. Sir? Yes, Specialist? When you find out who betrayed them, she looked back over her shoulder. I want 5 minutes alone with them. The Admiral almost smiled. Get in line. They gave her a room barely bigger than a closet. Bunk, locker, tiny desk. Standard enlisted quarters. She didn't care. She stripped off the bloody scrubs, stood under the shower until the water ran cold, then collapsed onto the bunk in her underwear and a navy t-shirt someone had left for her. She should have been exhausted, should have passed out immediately. Instead, she stared at the ceiling, listening to the low thrum of the carrier's engines, and thought about Ethan Kane. Alive. All this time, alive. And someone had tried to kill him. Her hands curled into fists. The old anger was back, the kind she'd spent 6 years trying to bury under routine and invisibility, and pretending she was just a nurse who couldn't handle pressure. But she'd never been just a nurse. She'd been a soldier, a medic, a weapon wrapped in scrubs. And someone had just reminded her exactly what she was. There was a knock on the door. She sat up, pulled on pants, opened it. The lead operator from the helicopter stood there, looking tired but alert. Captain Kane's out of surgery, stable. He's asking for you. Reyna didn't bother with shoes, just followed him down the corridor, barefoot on cold metal, to the medical bay. It was state-of-the-art, better than half the civilian hospitals she'd seen. Ethan was in a private room, hooked up to more machines than she could count, but his eyes were open. When he saw her, his lips quirked into something like a smile. Hey, Ghost. It was his old nickname for her. From the days when she'd appear out of nowhere in the middle of firefights, save someone's life, and disappear again before anyone could thank her, Reyna felt her throat close up. Hey yourself, Captain. Not Captain. Anymore. His voice was a rasp, weak but there. Got promoted? Colonel? Now. Congratulations, you look like hell. He laughed, then winced. You look good, normal, life suits you. Did, past tense. Reyna pulled up a chair, sat beside the bed. You just dragged me back into the shit, Ethan. Sorry, couldn't die without seeing you. Again. Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't you dare joke about dying, not after making me think you were dead for 6 years. His smile faded. His hand moved, weak, toward hers. She took it, held it gently. Wasn't my call. Orders. You know how it is. I know. She did. Orders were orders, even when they destroyed you. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan's grip tightened, just slightly. Someone sold us out, Ray. Someone with access to everything. I know, the Admiral told me. Need you to help. Find them. Can't trust anyone else. Raina looked at him. At this man who'd saved her life more times than she could count, who'd taught her how to survive when survival seemed impossible, who'd believed in her when no one else did. I'm a nurse now, Ethan. I don't do this anymore. You never stopped. Saw you in that helicopter. Saw the ghost. She's still in there? He wasn't wrong. Raina could feel it, that cold, precise part of herself that never hesitated, never flinched, never stopped until the job was done. It was waking up, and part of her was terrified of what would happen when it fully opened its eyes. But another part, the part that had spent 6 years mourning a man who wasn't dead, who'd carried guilt that wasn't hers, who'd made herself invisible because she couldn't stand being seen, that part was ready. Okay, she said quietly. I'll help. But when this is over, you owe me answers. All of them. Deal. She stayed with him until he fell asleep, then made her way back to her quarters. As she walked through the corridors of the USS Ronald Reagan, past sailors who didn't know who she was or why she was there, Raina Cross felt something shift inside her. The ghost was awake, and someone was going to pay. And someone was going to pay. The thought stayed with her through the night, through the restless half-sleep that came in 20-minute intervals, through the dreams that weren't quite nightmares but close enough. When the knock came at 05:30, Raina was already awake, already dressed in the Navy fatigue someone had left outside her door. She opened it to find a young ensign, barely out of his teens, looking nervous. Ma'am, Admiral Hawthorne wants to see you. Conference room, deck 3. I know where it is. She didn't, but she'd find it. The ensign looked relieved to be dismissed and practically jogged away. Raina grabbed the coffee someone had also left. Lukewarm, bitter, perfect, and made her way through the carrier's guts. Early morning on a warship meant controlled chaos. Sailors moving with purpose, equipment humming, the smell of jet fuel and salt water mixing in the ventilation system. She found deck 3, found the conference room, pushed through the door without knocking. Inside, 5 people looked up. Admiral Hawthorne sat at the head of a table covered in classified folders and laptop screens. To his right was a woman in her 40s, civilian clothes, but she had that look. Intelligence community, probably CIA. Across from her sat 2 men in army dress uniforms, both colonels, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. And at the far end, standing with his arms crossed, was the Delta operator from last night. Specialist Cross, thank you for joining us. Hawthorne gestured to an empty chair. This is Sandra Vega, Defense Intelligence Agency. Colonel Marcus Webb, Army CID. Colonel David Torres, Special Operations Command. And you've met Lieutenant Commander Hayes. The Delta operator, Hayes, nodded once. Raina sat, sipped her terrible coffee, and waited. Vega spoke first. Her voice was crisp, efficient, the kind that came from years of briefing people who could end the world with a phone call. We've been investigating the Yemen operation for 72 hours. What we found is problematic. Problematic how? Raina asked. The ambush that killed 7 operators and nearly killed Colonel Kane was based on intelligence that could only have come from inside our command structure. Someone with top-secret clearance, access to operational planning, and detailed knowledge of special operations protocols. Webb leaned forward, elbows on the table. He was older than Torres, graying at the temples, eyes tired. We're looking at a leak that goes high, very high, possibly flag officer level. The room went quiet. Raina understood why. A flag officer, general or admiral, turning traitor wasn't just a scandal. It was an earthquake. Careers would end, investigations would consume years, trust would shatter. You think it's someone in this room? Raina said it flat, watching their faces. Hawthorne didn't flinch. We think it's someone with access to operational briefings that only a handful of people attend, which means we're operating under the assumption that anyone could be compromised until proven otherwise. Then why am I here? I've been out for 6 years. Exactly. Vega pulled out a tablet, slid it across the table. You have no current clearances, no access, no reason for anyone to think you're part of this investigation, which makes you useful. Raina looked at the tablet. On the screen was a list of names, ranks, positions. 23 people, all high-ranking, all with access to the kind of information that got Ethan's team killed. You want me to do what exactly? We want you to stay visible, Hawthorne said. Stay close to Colonel Kane. Let people know you're here. Someone tried to kill him once. They might try again. And when they do, I'm the bait, Raina finished. You're the failsafe, Vega corrected. Kane trusts you. We need someone watching him who isn't part of the command structure. Someone who can't be compromised because they're not plugged into the system. Torres spoke for the first time. His voice was deep, southern accent softened, but still there. We've already had 2 attempts to access Kane's medical records. Someone wants to know his status, whether he can talk, what he remembers. Can he talk? Not much, not yet, but he will. Torres's jaw tightened. And when he does, whoever sold him out is going to panic. Raina set down her coffee, looked at each of them in turn. And if I say no, then you go back to Boston, Hawthorne said. Back to Blackridge Medical. Back to being invisible. And we find another way. He paused. But Colonel Kane specifically asked for you, said you were the only one he trusted to watch his back. So I'm asking, will you help us? She thought about Ethan, alone in that hospital bed, barely alive, asking for her with what might have been his last breath. Thought about the 7 operators who didn't make it out of Yemen, who had families somewhere grieving people they were told died serving their country. Thought about 6 years of guilt she'd carried for a death that never happened. I'll do it. Vega smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Good. We've arranged for you to be assigned to the medical team as a civilian consultant. You'll have access to Kane's room, his chart, his visitors. Anyone who comes near him, we want to know. Anyone who asks about him, we want to know. You're his shadow. What about the medics, the doctors? They're going to have questions. Let them ask, Webb said. Your cover story is simple. You're a trauma nurse who served with Kane years ago. He requested you specifically because he trusts you. That's all anyone needs to know. Hayes pushed off the wall where he'd been standing. I'll be running security. You see anything suspicious, anything at all, you come to me. Not through channels, not through official reports. Directly to me. Raina nodded. She understood. Trust no one. Report nothing that could be intercepted. Operate in the shadows, just like old times. The meeting broke up 20 minutes later, after they'd gone through protocols and contingencies and what to do if things went sideways. Raina was almost out the door when Vega caught her arm. A word specialist? They stepped into the corridor. Sailors passed, glancing curiously but not stopping. Vega waited until they were alone before speaking, her voice low. I read your file. Your real file, not the sanitized version they give to hospitals. You were good. Really good. 3 combat deployments, 47 confirmed saves under fire, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star that you refused to accept. I did my job. You did more than that. You kept an entire platoon alive through an 8-hour siege in Kandahar when everyone else said it was hopeless. You performed a field amputation in the back of a moving Humvee while taking fire. You're a legend in certain circles. Raina's jaw tightened. I'm not a legend. I'm a nurse who couldn't save everyone. No one can save everyone, but you saved more than anyone had a right to expect. Vega studied her face, which makes me wonder why you walked away. Why you spent 6 years hiding in a civilian ER, taking abuse from people who don't know what you're capable of. That's not relevant. It is if you're going to be protecting Colonel Kane, because whoever tried to kill him is going to try again. And when they do, you're going to have to decide if you can still do what needs to be done. Raina met her eyes, held them. I can. Good, because I've also read the classified reports, the ones that didn't make it into your official file. I know what happened in Kandahar. I know what you did to keep those soldiers alive. and I know what it cost you." For a moment, Raina couldn't breathe. No one was supposed to know about Kandahar. Not the real story. Not what she'd done in those 8 hours when command abandoned them and enemy fire turned the compound into a killing box. Not the choices she'd made, the lines she'd crossed. "Stay focused on the mission," Vega said quietly. "But don't forget who you are. We need the ghost Specialist Cross, not the woman pretending to be someone else." She walked away before Raina could respond, left her standing in the corridor, hands trembling slightly, old ghost stirring in the back of her mind. The ghost. That's what they'd called her. The medic who appeared from nowhere, saved your life and vanished. The one who didn't follow rules when rules got people killed. The one who'd earned a silver star and refused it because what she'd done to earn it kept her up at night. Raina closed her eyes, took 3 breaths, pushed it all down, back into the box where it belonged. Then she went to check on Ethan. The medical bay was quieter during the day. Most of the emergency cases had stabilized or been transferred. Ethan's room was at the end of a corridor, 2 Marines standing guard outside. They checked her ID, confirmed her clearance, and let her pass. Inside, Ethan was awake, propped up at a 45-degree angle, looking marginally less like death. "You look better," Raina said, pulling up a chair. "Liar." But he smiled when he said it. His voice was stronger today, less rasp, more human. "Heard you talked to Hawthorne." "You heard correctly. And I'm officially your babysitter until whoever sold you out makes their next move." Ethan's smile faded. "Don't like using you as bait." "Too bad. You don't get a vote." Raina checked his monitors out of habit. Heart rate steady, blood pressure good, oxygen saturation 94%, which was acceptable given his lung trauma. "Besides, I've been bait before, still here." Kandahar wasn't bait. That was a suicide mission that you somehow survived. We survived, all of us, because of you. Raina didn't answer that. Couldn't. Because he was right. And the cost of keeping 23 soldiers alive for 8 hours while insurgents tried to kill them all was something she still paid for in nightmares. Ethan's hand moved, fingers brushing hers. "Sorry for dragging you back in. Stop apologizing. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose to come. Still, you were out. You were free." "I was hiding," Raina said quietly. "There's a difference." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan shifted, winced, and reached for the water cup on his bedside table. Raina beat him to it, held it while he drank through the straw. "Tell me about Yemen," she said. "What do you remember?" Ethan's face went dark. He set down the cup, stared at the wall like he was seeing something else. Somewhere else. "We were tracking a weapons dealer. High-value target. Intel said he'd be in Sana'a, meeting with Iranian proxies. Simple snatch and grab." He paused, breathing carefully. "We inserted at 0200, 4 vehicles, 7 operators. Perfect execution. Until it wasn't." "What happened?" "Ambush. Professional, coordinated. They knew our route, our timeline, our comm frequencies." His voice went flat. "They were waiting. RPGs hit the lead vehicle before we even reached the target house. Then small arms from 3 sides. We tried to fall back, but they'd blocked the exfil route." Raina could picture it, the chaos, the fire, the way time compressed when you were under attack, every second stretching into hours while your body moved on autopilot. "How'd you get out?" "Didn't, not really. Fought for 3 hours. Lost comms. Lost 2 vehicles. Thompson took a round through the neck, bled out before I could stop it. Diaz got hit by an RPG, nothing left to save." Ethan's hands were shaking now. "Martinez, Keller, Williams, Santos, Rodriguez, all gone. I only survived because the building collapsed and they thought I was dead. But someone pulled you out." Local contact, civilian, risked his life, got me to a safe house, called for extraction. But by then, he trailed off, jaw working. By then I knew. Someone gave us up. Someone wanted my team dead. Raina's mind was racing. 7 operators, all dead except Ethan, and someone had made sure they walked into a kill box. Someone with access, with authority, with reasons she couldn't yet see. Do you know who? No, but I know why. That made her look up. Why? Ethan met her eyes. Because 3 weeks ago, I found something. Something that wasn't supposed to be found. Before he could continue, the door opened. A Navy doctor walked in. Commander Patricia Ellis, according to her name tag, mid-30s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. She glanced at Raina, then at Ethan. Colonel Kane, I need to run some tests, and you... She looked at Raina. Need to leave. She stays, Ethan said. No question in his voice, just fact. Ellis frowned. Colonel, I understand you have a personal connection with Miss Cross, but hospital protocol? Commander, Ethan's voice went hard despite his weakness. She stays. That's not a request. Ellis's jaw tightened. She clearly didn't like being overruled by a patient, even one with a colonel's rank, but she nodded curtly. Fine, but stay out of the way. She ran through a neurological exam, checking pupil response, motor function, cognitive status. Ethan passed everything, which seemed to annoy Ellis more than reassure her. When she finished, she made notes on her tablet and turned to leave. Commander, Raina said, how long before he can be moved? Moved where? Off the carrier. To a secure facility. Ellis stared at her like she'd suggested throwing Ethan overboard. He's not being moved anywhere for at least a week. Maybe 2. He has a chest tube, multiple fractures, internal injuries that are still healing. Moving him prematurely could kill him. Leaving him here could kill him faster. That's absurd. This is one of the most secure. This is a ship with 5,000 people on it. Any one of them could be compromised. Any one of them could have access to this room. Raina kept her voice level, reasonable. How long would it take someone to disconnect his ventilator, to swap his medication, to inject him with something that looks like natural complications? Ellis went pale. She looked at Ethan, then back at Raina. You're serious. Very. Then maybe you should talk to security instead of harassing my patient's physician. She left, door swinging shut behind her. Ethan let out a breath that might have been a laugh. You always this charming? Only when people's lives are at stake. Raina pulled out her phone, military issue, given to her by Hayes, and sent a quick text. Ellis is spooked. Might be a problem. The response came back in seconds. Noted. Watching her. Raina pocketed the phone and turned back to Ethan. You said you found something. What was it? Ethan's expression went grim. He reached under his pillow, pulled out a small USB drive. Raina blinked. She'd been in this room 3 times now. How had she missed that? Been hiding it since I got here. Can't trust the network. Can't trust official channels. He held it out. Everything's on here. Names, transactions, proof. Raina took it. The drive was small, black, unmarked. Proof of what? Arms deals, weapons shipments to enemy combatants, money laundering through defense contracts, and the officer coordinating it all. Her blood went cold. Who? Brigadier General Lawrence Vance, Deputy Director, Special Operations, Command. The name hit her like a fist. Vance. She knew that name. Everyone in Special Operations knew it. He was a legend. 30 years of service. Multiple combat deployments. Decorated, respected, untouchable. And apparently, a traitor. Are you sure? Saw the transactions myself. Traced them. Back through shell companies. All leading to Vance. Ethan's eyes were fever bright now. Intense. He's been selling operational intel to the highest bidder. My team found the evidence. He found out. Decided we needed to Disappear. Raina closed her fist around the USB drive. Have you told Hawthorne? Can't. Vance has connections everywhere. Tell the wrong person, and you're dead. That's why I needed you. You're not in the system. You can move freely. What do you want me to do with this? Get it to someone we can trust. Someone outside the chain of command. Who? Senator Catherine Morrison, Armed Services Committee. She's been investigating defense fraud. This is what she needs to bring Vance down. Raina's mind was spinning. A sitting general selling secrets. A conspiracy that had already killed 7 operators. And now she was holding the evidence that could either end it or get her killed. Morrison's in Washington. And you have a phone. Encrypted channels is in the drive. Instructions by option 2. Ethan gripped her hand, his fingers cold. Please, Ray. This is bigger than us. Bigger than what happened in Yemen. If Vance stays in power, more soldiers die. She looked at him. At this man who'd saved her life, who'd trusted her with his, who'd carried secrets for 6 years because orders demanded it, who was asking her to risk everything one more time. Okay, I'll do it. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. But if this goes wrong, if Vance finds out, he won't. You're too good at being invisible. Raina almost laughed. She'd spent 6 years perfecting invisibility, and now it was the thing that might keep them both alive. She pocketed the drive, checked the corridor outside, empty except for the Marines, and headed back to her quarters. Her mind was already working through logistics. How to access the encrypted channel without being traced. How to contact Morrison without alerting anyone monitoring communications. How to move the evidence without leaving a trail. She was so focused, she almost didn't notice the figure waiting outside her door. Hayes. He straightened when he saw her, face unreadable. We need to talk. About? Commander Ellis just filed a complaint. Says you're interfering with her patient's care, threatening her. Raina's jaw tightened. I didn't threaten anyone. I told her the truth. Well, your truth just made her nervous enough to escalate to Admiral Hawthorne. He wants to see you. Now. I'm busy. Not a request specialist. Raina wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that she had evidence that could blow this entire investigation wide open, that she needed to move fast before Vance realized Ethan was alive and talking. But Hayes was already walking, and refusing would just make things worse. She followed him back to the conference room. Hawthorne was there, along with Vega and Ellis. The doctor looked triumphant. Hawthorne looked annoyed. Specialist cross. Commander Ellis says you've been interfering with Colonel Kane's medical care. That's not accurate, sir. Then what would you call suggesting that someone on this ship is trying to kill my patient? Ellis snapped. Being realistic. Someone already tried to kill him once. What makes you think they won't try again? This is a secure facility. No facility is secure when you don't know who to trust. Hawthorne held up a hand. Enough, both of you. Yeet. He looked at Raina. Specialist, I understand your concerns, but you can't go around scaring the medical staff. We need them focused on keeping Colonel Kane alive, not jumping at shadows. With respect, sir, they should be jumping at shadows, because one of those shadows is going to try to kill him. We have Marines posted outside his room. We have security monitoring his floor. He's as safe as we can make him. Marines can be bribed. Security can be compromised. You said yourself you don't know who to trust. Vega spoke up, her voice cutting through the tension. She has a point, Admiral. We're operating under the assumption that anyone could be the leak. That includes the people we've assigned to protect Kane. Hawthorne's expression darkened. He looked at Ellis. Commander, I need you to brief your staff. Tell them to report any unusual behavior around Colonel Kane's room. Anyone asking questions, anyone trying to access his records, anything out of the ordinary. Understood? Yes, sir. Ellis shot Raina a look that could have melted steel, then left. When the door closed, Hawthorne turned back to Raina. You're making enemies, Specialist. I don't care about making friends. I care about keeping Ethan alive. Then keep him alive without pissing off everyone on my ship. He paused. Anything else I should know? Raina thought about the USB drive in her pocket. the evidence, the connection to Vance. Every instinct screamed to tell Hawthorne, to bring him into the loop, but Ethan's words echoed in her head. Can't trust the chain of command. Vance has connections everywhere. No, sir, nothing else. Hawthorne studied her face for a long moment. She kept her expression neutral, gave him nothing. Finally, he nodded. Dismissed. Raina left before he could change his mind. Hayes followed her into the corridor, grabbed her arm. What aren't you telling him? Nothing. Bullshit. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know when someone's holding back. Raina pulled her arm free. Then you also know when to let it go. She walked away, feeling his eyes on her back. Felt the weight of the USB drive in her pocket like a loaded gun. Felt the clock ticking down. Every second another chance for Vance to figure out that Ethan was alive and talking. She made it back to her quarters, locked the door, and pulled out the drive. Her laptop, also military issue, also monitored, sat on the desk. She couldn't use it. Too risky. Instead, she pulled out the phone Hayes had given her, the one that was supposed to be secure. Supposed to be. She powered it on, inserted the drive into the port adapter, and waited. The screen lit up. A single file appeared. Encrypted. She tapped it, and a prompt appeared. Enter passphrase. She stared at it. Ethan hadn't given her a passphrase unless... She typed, ghost. The file opened. Inside were documents, dozens of them. Financial records, communications logs, shipping manifests, and at the center of it all, a name that appeared over and over. Lawrence Vance. Raina scrolled through, reading fast. The scope of it was staggering. Weapons sales to enemy combatants. Intelligence sold to foreign governments. Defense contracts rigged to funnel money into offshore accounts. And all of it coordinated by a man who was supposed to be protecting American soldiers. She found the encrypted communication channel. A secure app, military-grade encryption, designed to bypass standard monitoring. She launched it, typed in Senator Morrison's contact information from the file. Message. Senator Morrison, my name is Raina Cross. I'm a former Army combat medic. I have evidence of criminal activity by Brigadier General Lawrence Vance. Need secure meeting. Urgent. She hit send, watched the message disappear into the encrypted void. Didn't know if it would reach Morrison. Didn't know if Morrison would believe her. Didn't know if... Her phone buzzed. Incoming message received. Can you verify authenticity? Raina's pulse quickened. Morrison was actually responding. Message. Colonel Ethan Kane survived the Yemen ambush. He has proof. Vance tried to kill him and his team to cover it up. Incoming message. Where's Kane now? Message. USS Reagan. Under guard. Still in danger. There was a pause. Longer this time. Raina counted the seconds. 30, 40, 50. Incoming message. Can you get the evidence off the ship? Message. Working on it. Incoming message. Do it fast. I've been investigating Vance for 6 months. If he knows Kane survived, he'll move to cover his tracks. Permanently. Message. Understood. Incoming message. Send me everything you have. Use this channel. And watch your back, Ms. Cross. Vance has people everywhere. The connection ended. Raina sat in the dark, staring at her phone, adrenaline flooding her system. This was real. This was happening, and she was in the middle of it. A knock at her door made her jump. She shoved the phone under her pillow, crossed to the door, opened it a crack. Hayes stood there, expression grim. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Commander Ellis just collapsed in the medical bay. Someone poisoned her coffee. She's critical. Raina's blood went cold. Is she gonna make it? Don't know yet. But here's the thing. She was the only one who knew you'd been asking questions about security. The only one who filed that complaint. The implication hung in the air between them. Someone had tried to silence Ellis, someone who knew she'd spoken to Hawthorne, someone who was trying to shut down anyone who might figure out what was really happening. You think I'm next? Raina asked quietly. I think whoever tried to kill Kane is getting desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. But they also kill anyone who gets in their way. Hayes' eyes were hard. So yeah, I think you need to watch your back. Already am. Not well enough. Ellis was drinking coffee from the officer's mess. Same place you get yours. Same place half the ship gets theirs. Whoever poisoned her could poison you just as easily. Raina's hand went to her pocket. felt the outline of the USB drive. What do you want me to do? Stay in your quarters. Don't eat or drink anything you didn't prepare yourself. And for God's sake, if you know something that can help us catch this person, tell me now. She met his eyes, saw the sincerity there, the genuine concern. But she also remembered Ethan's warning. Vance has connections everywhere. Tell the wrong person and you're dead. I don't know anything, she lied. Hayes stared at her for a long moment. Then he stepped back. Fine. But when this blows up in your face, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. He left. Raina closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, breathing hard. Ellis was dying because she'd asked questions. How long before Raina was next? She pulled out the phone, sent one more message to Morrison. Message. Situation escalating. Need extraction. How soon can you move? The response came fast. Incoming message. 48 hours. Can you last that long? Raina looked at the locked door, thought about Ethan alone in his hospital bed, thought about Vance somewhere out there, cleaning up loose ends, thought about the 7 operators who died because someone sold them out. Message. I'll make it work. Incoming message. Good. Stay alive, Ms. Cross. We need you. The connection ended. Raina set down the phone, pulled out the USB drive, and stared at it. This tiny piece of plastic and metal held the evidence that could bring down a general, could expose a conspiracy, could get her killed, but it could also get justice for Ethan's team, could stop Vance before he killed anyone else, could finally mean that all the blood and guilt and nightmares hadn't been for nothing. She tucked the drive back in her pocket and checked the time. 2,200 hours. The ship was quieting down, moving into night watch rotation. She needed to get back to Ethan, needed to make sure he was safe, needed to... Her phone buzzed again. Different tone. Emergency alert. Code black. Medical bay. All personnel respond. Raina's heart stopped. She grabbed her jacket and ran. The corridors were chaos, sailors running, alarms blaring, voices shouting. She pushed through, fighting upstream against the flow of bodies until she reached the medical bay. The Marines outside Ethan's room were gone. The door was open. Inside, the monitors were screaming. Ethan was convulsing, foam at his mouth, eyes rolled back. 2 medics were working on him, one holding him down, the other trying to get an IV line in. What happened? Raina demanded, shoving past them. Don't know, he was stable, then suddenly... Move. She pushed the medic aside, grabbed Ethan's jaw, forced his mouth open. His tongue had rolled back. She repositioned it, checked his airway. Clear. But his pupils were blown, his skin was gray, and he was seizing like someone had electrocuted him, poisoned, just like Ellis. Get me naloxone now, Raina snapped. And atropine. Full dose. But we don't know what now. The medic scrambled. Raina held Ethan down, keeping his airway clear, watching the monitor. His heart rate was through the roof. Blood pressure crashing. This was bad. Really bad. The medic came back with the drugs. Raina grabbed them, pushed the naloxone first. If this was an opioid, that would reverse it. Nothing. She pushed the atropine. Ethan's body arched, then went rigid. The monitor flatlined. No. Raina started compressions, hard and fast, feeling his ribs flex under her hands. Don't you dare die on me, Ethan. Not like this. Not now. One of the medics charged the defibrillator. Clear! Raina stepped back. They shocked him. The body jerked. The monitor stayed flat. Again! Another shock. Another jerk. Still nothing. Raina's mind was racing. Not opioid. Not organophosphate. Something else. Something fast-acting and lethal and cyanide. She grabbed the hydroxycobalamin from the crash cart, vitamin B12, the antidote for cyanide poisoning, and pushed it into his IV line. Kept doing compressions, kept breathing for him, kept refusing to let him go. The monitor beeped. Once, twice. A rhythm, weak, thready, barely there, but alive. Raina sagged against the bed, breathing hard. The medic stared at her like she'd just performed a miracle, but it wasn't a miracle. It was training, experience, and sheer stubborn refusal to lose someone else. Hayes burst through the door, weapon drawn, scanning the room. What the hell happened? Someone poisoned him, Raina said, voice hoarse. Cyanide. in his IV line. Hayes's face went white. That's impossible. We've had Marines on this door. Then one of your Marines is working for Vance. The words hung in the air like a grenade. Hayes stared at her, then at the Marines who'd just reappeared in the doorway, both looking confused and alarmed. Lock down this floor, Hayes said quietly. No one in or out. I want every person who had access to this room in the last 6 hours identified and detained. Now. The Marines moved. Hayes turned back to Reyna, his expression dangerous. You said Vance, as in General Lawrence Vance. Reyna met his eyes. No point in lying now. The secret was out. Yes. How long have you known? Since this afternoon. And you didn't think to tell anyone? Ethan said we couldn't trust the chain of command, that Vance had people everywhere. Looks like he was right. Hayes looked like he wanted to punch something. Instead, he holstered his weapon and pulled out his phone. I'm calling Admiral Hawthorne. This is officially a criminal investigation. Wait, no. I've been patient. I've let you play your games, but someone just tried to kill a colonel on my watch, and I'm done with secrets. He dialed, put the phone to his ear. Admiral? Hayes, we have a situation. You need to get to the medical bay. Now. He hung up, looked at Reyna. When he gets here, you're going to tell him everything. And I mean everything. Understand? Reyna wanted to argue, wanted to explain that telling Hawthorne might be the thing that got them all killed. But Ethan was alive, barely, and someone had just tried to murder him in a secure military facility. The game had changed. The rules no longer applied. Understood. Hawthorne arrived 5 minutes later, flanked by Vega and 2 armed guards. He took one look at Ethan, at the chaos in the room, and his expression went from concern to furious. Report. Hayes gave it to him, short and brutal. Poisoned IV line cyanide. Specialist Cross saved his life. And then, she also has information about who ordered the hit. Every eye in the room turned to Reyna. She pulled the USB drive from her pocket, held it up. Brigadier General Lawrence Vance. He's been selling weapons and intelligence to enemy combatants. Ethan's team found proof. Vance ordered them killed to cover it up. She handed the drive to Hawthorne. It's all in there, financial records, communications, everything you need to bury him. Hawthorne stared at the drive like it was a live snake. Are you telling me a sitting general tried to assassinate one of his own officers? Yes, sir. And he just tried again, which means he knows Ethan survived Yemen, which means someone on this ship is feeding him information. The silence was deafening. Vega spoke first, voice tight. If that's true, if Vance really is compromised, then this investigation just became a matter of national security. And every communication we've had about it is potentially compromised, Hawthorne added grimly. He looked at his guards. I want this ship locked down. No communications in or out without my direct authorization. And I want Vance's location confirmed, now. One of the guards pulled out a radio, started making calls. The other stood at attention, waiting. Hawthorne turned back to Reyna. You've been holding this evidence since this afternoon? Yes, sir. Why? Because Ethan said we couldn't trust anyone. That Vance had people in the command structure. I was trying to get the evidence to Senator Morrison, someone outside the military who could act on it. You contacted Morrison? Vega's eyes went wide. When? 2 hours ago. She confirmed she's been investigating Vance. She promised extraction in 48 hours. Hawthorne and Vega exchanged a look. Something passed between them, something Reyna couldn't read. Then Hawthorne nodded slowly. All right, new plan. We move Colonel Kane to a secure location off this ship, somewhere Vance can't reach him. And we fast-track the evidence to Morrison's office through encrypted channels that Vance can't monitor. He looked at Reyna. You're going with him. You're the only one Kane trusts, and right now, trust is in short supply. Where are we going? Naval base in Virginia. Small facility, high security, minimal personnel. We can keep him safe there while Morrison builds her case. Hawthorne handed the USB drive to Vega. Get this to Morrison. Use every secure protocol we have. If Vance gets wind of this before she can move, we're all dead. Vega nodded, already pulling out her phone. The guard came back, face pale. Admiral, we have a problem. General Vance just requested a video call with you. Says it's urgent. The room went dead silent. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. When? 5 minutes ago, before we locked down communications. Did you answer? No, sir. We were waiting for your orders. Hawthorne looked at the USB drive in Vega's hand, looked at Ethan, unconscious and barely alive, looked at Reyna. He knows, Reyna said quietly. He knows we have the evidence, and he's calling to see how much we know. Or he's calling to threaten us, Hayes added, to warn us off. Either way, we're out of time. Hawthorne straightened. Answer the call. Put it on the main screen. Let's see what he has to say. They moved to the conference room, the same one where this whole thing had started. The guards set up the video link. Hawthorne sat at the head of the table, Vega and Hayes flanking him. Reyna stood in the back, trying to be invisible, trying not to be noticed. The screen flickered, and there he was, Brigadier General Lawrence Vance. Brigadier General Lawrence Vance. He looked exactly like his official photos. Silver hair, square jaw, uniform pressed to razor edges. But the photos didn't capture the eyes, cold, calculating. The kind of eyes that had watched men die and slept fine afterward. Admiral Hawthorne, thank you for taking my call. Hawthorne's voice was neutral. Careful. General Vance? What can I do for you? I heard there was an incident on the Reagan, something involving Colonel Kane. Vance leaned forward slightly. I wanted to check on his condition. Kane's a good officer, one of our best. He's stable. Glad to hear it. The Yemen operation was unfortunate. We lost good men. Vance paused, and Reyna could see the calculation happening behind those dead eyes. I understand you've brought in outside personnel to assist with his care. A civilian consultant, former military. Hawthorne didn't flinch. That's correct. Colonel Kane requested her specifically. Interesting. I'd like to know her name. For security clearance purposes, you understand. Her clearances are current. Nevertheless, when we have a high-value asset like Colonel Kane, we need to ensure everyone with access is properly vetted. Surely you understand the need for caution, Admiral. It was a threat wrapped in courtesy. Vance wanted to know who was protecting Ethan, wanted to identify his next target. Reyna's pulse hammered, but she stayed still, stayed quiet, stayed invisible in the back of the room. Hawthorne's expression didn't change. I'll have my staff send over the relevant documentation. Was there anything else? Actually, yes. I'm concerned about the security of the evidence recovered from the Yemen site. Sensitive operational materials. I'd like to arrange a transfer to my office for proper analysis and classification. There it was. The real reason for the call. Vance wanted the USB drive, wanted to destroy the evidence before it could destroy him. What evidence? Hawthorne asked, voice mild. Vance's smile didn't reach his eyes. Come now, Admiral. We both know Colonel Kane was carrying classified materials when he was extracted. Standard protocol is to secure those materials and return them to the originating command. That would be my office. I'm not aware of any classified materials. Then perhaps you should check with Colonel Kane. When he's feeling better, of course. Vance's tone hardened just slightly. I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings about proper procedure, especially given the sensitive nature of the Yemen operation. The threat was clear now. Cooperate or face consequences. Hawthorne held Vance's stare through the screen. I'll look into it, General. If we find anything, I'll let you know. See that you do, soon. Vance sat back. One more thing. The civilian consultant you mentioned, I'd like to speak with her, personally, to thank her for her service to Colonel Kane. Reyna's blood went cold. I'll pass along your regards, Hawthorne said. I'd prefer to do it myself. Can you arrange a call? She's off shift at the moment, but I'll relay your request. Vance's eyes narrowed, just a fraction. Of course. Well, I won't keep you. Thank you for your time, Admiral, and please give Colonel Kane my best wishes for a speedy recovery. The screen went dark. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence stretched until Hayes finally broke it. He knows. Of course he knows, Vega said. The question is how much. Hawthorne turned to look at Reyna. Did he see you? I don't think so. I stayed out of frame. Good. Because if he identifies you, you're dead. Hawthorne stood, started pacing. We need to move Kane now. Tonight. Before Vance figures out where we're taking him. Sir, with respect, moving Kane in his condition. Hayes started, is less risky than leaving him here where Vance can send another assassin. We have a transport helicopter standing by. We use it. Vega was already on her phone. I'll coordinate with Morrison's office. Get the evidence to her through diplomatic channels. Something Vance can't intercept. Do it fast. We have maybe 6 hours before he makes his next move. Hawthorne looked at Raina. You're going with Kane. Stay with him. Keep him alive. That's your only job now. Understood. Hayes, you're running point on transport. I want a full security detail, encrypted comms, and a flight plan that doesn't go through any airspace Vance can monitor. Can you do that? Yes, sir, but we'll need to launch within the hour. Any longer, and we risk... The lights went out. Complete darkness. Then emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Alarms started blaring. Hawthorne grabbed his radio. Bridge, this is Hawthorne. Report. Static. Bridge, respond. More static. Then a voice, faint and crackling. Admiral, we've lost main power. Backup generators are... Someone's in the system. The radio cut out. Hawthorne's face went pale. He turned to his guards. Get to the bridge. Find out what's happening. Go! They ran. Hayes pulled his weapon, moved to the door, scanning the corridor. This isn't a coincidence. Vance, Raina said quietly. He's shutting us down, cutting communications, trapping us here while he sends someone to finish the job. We need to get to Kane, Hayes said. Now. They moved as a unit through corridors lit only by emergency strips, past sailors scrambling to figure out what was happening. The ship felt wrong without main power. Too quiet. Too vulnerable. They reached the medical bay. The Marines outside Ethan's room were gone again. The door was ajar. Hayes went in first, weapon up, clearing corners. Raina followed, heart in her throat. Ethan was still in bed, still unconscious, monitors still beeping. But the IV line had been disconnected. Again. And standing over him, syringe in hand, was Commander Ellis. She looked up when they entered. Her face was pale, drawn, eyes hollow. The face of someone who'd already made a choice they couldn't take back. Don't, she said quietly. Hayes kept his weapon trained on her. Put down the syringe, Commander. I can't. Yes, you can. Whatever they're holding over you, we can protect you. Ellis laughed. It sounded broken. Protect me? You can't even protect yourselves. Vance owns this ship. He owns me. He owns all of us. He doesn't own me, Raina said, stepping forward slowly. And I'm betting he doesn't really own you either. Not if you have to force yourself to do this. Ellis's hand shook. The syringe trembled. You don't understand. My daughter, they have my daughter. They said if I don't do this. Where is she? I don't know. They took her 3 days ago. Said they'd kill her if I didn't cooperate. Said they'd make it look like an accident. Tears streamed down Ellis's face. I didn't want to poison my own coffee. I didn't want to hurt Kane. But they said it's him or her. Raina moved closer, kept her voice gentle. Commander, look at me. Whatever they told you, they're lying. If you kill Kane, they'll kill you both anyway. Loose ends. That's how people like Vance operate. You don't know that? I do, because I've seen it. Raina was within arm's reach now. But if you help us instead, if you testify, we can find your daughter. We can protect both of you. You have my word. Ellis stared at her. The syringe was still in her hand, still poised over Ethan's IV port. How can you promise that when you can barely protect yourselves? Because I'm not doing this alone anymore. Raina glanced back at Hawthorne, at Vega, at Hayes. We have resources. We have evidence. We have everything we need to bring Vance down, but we need time, and we need Kane alive. Ellis's hand lowered, just an inch. If I do this, if I help you, you swear you'll find my daughter? I swear. Ellis looked at the syringe, at Ethan, at her own trembling hand, then, slowly, she set it down. They're coming, she said. The people Vance sent. They're already on the ship. They shut down the power to create chaos. They'll use it to get to Kane. How many? Hayes demanded. I don't know. 3? Maybe 4? They came aboard during the crew rotation this morning, dressed as maintenance workers. Ellis's voice was shaking. They have weapons. Real weapons. Hawthorne grabbed his radio, still static. He cursed. We can't call for backup, can't lock down the ship. We're on our own. Then we move, Vega said. Now, get Kane to the flight deck and get him off this ship. They worked fast, disconnecting monitors, securing Ethan's chest tube, preparing portable equipment. Ethan stirred, eyes fluttering open. Ray, I'm here. We're moving you. Stay quiet. His hand caught hers, weak but insistent. Vance, I know. We're handling it. They got him onto a portable gurney. Hayes and one of Hawthorne's guards pushed while Reyna walked alongside monitoring vitals. Vega took point. Hawthorne brought up the rear. The corridors were chaos. Sailors running, shouting, trying to restore power. They made it to the first stairwell, started hauling the gurney up. 2 more decks to the flight deck. They cleared the stairwell, moved into another corridor. Emptier now, darker. Reyna's instincts screamed wrong. They were halfway down when the first shot rang out. Hayes went down, blood spraying from his shoulder. Vega returned fire, pulling Hawthorne behind cover. Reyna threw herself over Ethan's gurney. More shots, automatic weapons, suppressors turning gunfire into metallic coughs. Go, Vega shouted. Get Kane out! Reyna grabbed the gurney, started pushing. Ellis helped. Behind them, Vega and Hawthorne were pinned down. Hayes was crawling toward cover, leaving a blood trail. They reached a junction. One of the attackers stepped into view. Young, mid-20s, maintenance coveralls, rifle up, professional stance. He saw Reyna and Ellis with the gurney. Saw Ethan. Raised his weapon. Reyna moved on instinct. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, yanked the pin, and blasted him in the face. White foam exploded. He fired blindly, rounds punching ceiling, walls. Reyna closed the distance, swung the extinguisher like a bat, connected with his skull. He dropped. She grabbed his rifle, checked the magazine, half full. Can you shoot? She asked Ellis. No. Learn fast. Reyna pressed the weapon into her hands. Safety's off. Point and squeeze. Anyone comes who isn't us, you shoot. Understood? Ellis nodded, terrified but resolute. Reyna turned back. More gunfire. Vega was down now, clutching her leg. Hawthorne was the only one still returning fire. Reyna counted to 3, then broke cover. She moved low and fast, covered the distance to Hawthorne's position in seconds, slid in beside him. How many? 3, maybe 4. Professional. So am I. She blind fired around the corner. 3 controlled bursts, then pulled back. 30 rounds left. Maybe 60 seconds before they flanked. When I move, you run, she told Hawthorne. Get Vega. Get Hayes. Get back to the gurney. I'll hold them. You can't. I held 23 soldiers for 8 hours in Kandahar. I can hold 3 for 60 seconds. She looked at him. Go. She waited until he started moving, then stepped out. Full exposure. Drew their fire. Fired in controlled bursts, walking forward, forcing them back. Saw one drop, saw another duck. A third opened up, round snapping past her head. She dove, rolled, came up shooting. Got him in the chest. He went down. Behind her, Hawthorne was dragging Vega. Hayes was crawling, almost there. Then something hit Reyna in the side. Not a bullet. Wrong impact. She looked down, saw the dart, saw the plunger emptying, tranquilizer. The world tilted. She fired again, missed. Her legs weren't working. The rifle was too heavy. She hit the deck hard. Couldn't feel her legs. Could barely feel her arms. Someone stepped into view above her. Military uniform. Colonel's insignia. Scarred face. Hard eyes. Reyna Cross, the man said. General Vance sends his regards. He raised his weapon. Pointed it at her head. Reyna tried to move. Couldn't. Just watched the barrel centering on her forehead. A shot rang out. The man staggered. Blood bloomed on his shoulder. He spun, and another shot dropped him. Commander Ellis stood at the end of the corridor, rifle smoking, face white with shock. "Oh my God," Ellis whispered. Ellis!" Reyna's voice was slurred. "Get Kane out!" Ellis snapped out of it, ran back to the gurney, started pushing. Hawthorne appeared, grabbed Reyna, started dragging her. They made it to the stairwell. Up one more deck. They burst onto the flight deck. Night air hit like a slap. A helicopter was there, spinning up, pilot waving frantically. They loaded Ethan first, then Vega, then Hayes. Raina tried to stand, got one knee under her. Hawthorne grabbed her arm. "Come on, specialist." He half-carried her to the bird, shoved her inside. Ellis was already there. The pilot pulled pitch, and they lifted off. Raina's vision was tunneling, black at the edges. She fought hard, but the drug was winning. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Ethan's face, his eyes open, looking at her with something that might have been gratitude. Then nothing. She woke to fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell. Not a ship. Somewhere stable. Her head felt stuffed with cotton. Her side ached. But she was alive. "Easy." Hayes' voice, his arm was in a sling. "You've been out for 6 hours. Tranquilizer had enough sedative to drop a horse." "Where are we?" "Norfolk Naval Base, Virginia. High security. Vance doesn't know we're here." Hayes paused. "Yet." Raina forced her eyes to focus. Small room. No windows. Medical equipment. Standard military setup. "Ethan?" "Stable. Ellis is with him." "Vance?" "Still out there. But Senator Morrison has the evidence. She's calling a closed session of the Armed Services Committee for 900 tomorrow. She'll present everything, recommend immediate arrest. Vance will be in custody by noon." Raina closed her eyes. "He'll run." "Let him try. Vega's frozen his assets, flagged his passport. He sneezes wrong, we'll know." "What about Ellis's daughter?" "FBI's working on it. They traced the people holding her to a warehouse in Baltimore. Raid's happening now." Raina nodded slowly. Then, "Morrison. Is she safe?" Hayes' expression darkened. "We're making sure of it." Something in his tone made Raina look up. "What aren't you telling me?" Hayes hesitated. "There was an attempt on Morrison this morning. Her car was intercepted en route to Capitol Hill. She's missing." Raina's blood went cold. "Vance has her." "We don't know, Shalm." "Yes, we do. He knew we'd go to Morrison. He knew she was the threat, so he took her before she could present the evidence." Raina tried to sit up, managed it this time. "Where's Hawthorne?" "Coordinating search efforts," but Raina was already moving, ignoring the dizziness, the pain, the way her legs didn't quite work right. She found Hawthorne in a conference room, Vega beside him, both looking grim. "Morrison's alive," Raina said. Not a question. Hawthorne looked up. "We think so. If Vance wanted her dead, he'd have just killed her. He took her because he wants to know what we know." "He'll interrogate her, then kill her, then destroy the evidence." Raina's mind was racing. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 12 hours, if we're lucky." "Then we don't have time for a search. We make Vance come to us." "How?" "We leak that Ethan's talking, that he's giving a full deposition, that he remembers everything from Yemen." Raina's voice was cold now, hard. "Vance will have to move, and when he does, we'll be waiting." Hawthorne studied her. "That's using Kane as bait. It's using him as a weapon, and he'll agree." Vega looked at Hawthorne. "It's risky, but it might work." Hawthorne was quiet, then nodded. "All right, we do it your way." They spent 6 hours setting the trap, leaked information through channels Vance monitored, fortified the facility, positioned security teams, and waited. 1,700 hours. Nothing. 1730. Still nothing. 1,731. 5 minutes until the supposed deposition. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in. Alarms blaring. "He's here," Raina said. They moved fast. Found bodies. Security team, throats cut. Professional. Silent. These weren't contractors. These were operators. Gunfire erupted. Raina engaged, took down 2 attackers, helped Hawthorne and his men fall back, found Vega, got her to safety. And through it all, one thought: keep them away from Ethan. She made it back to the medical wing. The corridor was clear, too clear. She approached Ethan's room carefully. The door was open. Hayes was on the floor, unconscious, and standing over Ethan's bed, pistol aimed at his head, was Brigadier General Lawrence Vance himself. He looked at Raina, almost amused. "Specialist Cross, the ghost herself." Raina kept her weapon trained on him. "Step away." "Or what? You'll shoot? With Kane in the line of fire?" Vance shook his head. "You're too smart for that." He was right. From this position, any shot risked hitting Ethan. You won't kill him, Raina said. You need to know what he told us. You're right. I won't kill him. Not yet. Vance's finger tightened on the trigger. But I will kill you. So the question is, how much do you value your life? Raina didn't lower her weapon. More than you value yours. Ethan suddenly moved, grabbed Vance's wrist, shoved the gun aside. Vance fired. The round went into the mattress. Raina fired at the same instant, catching Vance in the shoulder. He dropped the weapon, staggered back. Raina put her barrel against his forehead. Move, and you die. Vance stared at her, blood spreading, face pale, shocked. You can't. I'm a general. Watch me. Behind her, Ethan was coughing. Ray, don't need him alive. She knew he was right. Vance alive was a liability. But killing him meant crossing a line. She thought about Kandahar, about the choices she'd made, about the weight she'd carried. She lowered the weapon. You're not worth it. Vance almost smiled. So the ghost has a conscience. No, I have a brain. You alive in custody with evidence? You're done. Footsteps. Hawthorne burst in with Marines, saw Vance, saw the blood. Specialist, report. General Vance attempted to assassinate Colonel Kane. I stopped him. The Marines moved in, cuffed Vance, hauled him away. He looked at Raina one more time. You're just like me, he said quietly. You've crossed the same lines. No, I did it to save people. You did it for money. That's not the same. They took him away. Raina stood there, weapon in hand, adrenaline crashing. Ethan was watching her. You okay? No, but I will be. Hawthorne found her in the corridor minutes later. We found Morrison, warehouse in Baltimore. She's alive. Shaken, but alive. And she still has copies of the evidence. Relief flooded through Raina. So it's over. Yes. Hawthorne studied her. You did good work. Better than good. I'm recommending you for the Distinguished Service Cross. And reinstatement with full rank. I don't know if I want back in. Take your time. The offer stands. He left. Raina's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Trent at Blackridge. Heard what happened. We need to talk. She stared at the message. Then another call came through. Unknown number. Specialist Cross? Agent Sarah Raines, FBI. Senator Morrison authorized me to offer you a position with a joint task force investigating military corruption. Interested? Raina's pulse quickened. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. There are more people like Vance out there. The call ended. Raina made her decision. She called Raines back. I'm in. Welcome aboard. Monday morning, Washington. Raina hung up, called Marcus. I'm not coming back to Blackridge, she said when he answered. Silence. Then, I understand. I wanted to apologize. It's fine. But tell everyone the woman they thought was useless just brought down a general. She hung up. Looked out the window at the Virginia sky. Vance was in custody. Morrison was safe. Justice was happening. She'd done it. But as she turned to check on Ethan one more time, someone was standing in the corridor. A woman, mid-30s, expensive suit, cold eyes, holding a folder marked classified. Specialist Cross. We need to talk. Who are you? Someone who knows what really happened in Kandahar. The woman's smile was sharp. You thought Vance was the end? He was just the beginning. She held out the folder. Read this, then decide if you still want that task force job. Raina took the folder with trembling hands, opened it. The document inside wasn't about Vance, it was about Kandahar, and it said the 8-hour siege that had defined her life hadn't been an accident, it had been a test. It had been a test. Raina stared at the words until they blurred. Her hands weren't shaking, they'd gone numb. The folder felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. You're lying, she said, but her voice came out flat, unconvincing even to herself. The woman in the expensive suit didn't smile, didn't gloat, just watched her with those cold, appraising eyes. Read page 3, the operational memo, dated 2 weeks before Kandahar. Raina turned the pages. Her vision tunneled on the header, Operational Directive, Classified Eyes Only. Below it, a name she recognized, Colonel Raymond Ashford, her commanding officer in Afghanistan. The man who'd ordered her platoon into that compound. The man who'd promised air support that never came. The memo was brief, clinical. It outlined an experimental protocol for identifying soldiers with exceptional performance capacity under extreme duress. Translation: they wanted to find people who could function when everything went to hell, people who could make impossible choices and live with them. The method was simple, brutal. Put a unit in a scenario designed to fail. Cut off their support. Watch who breaks and who doesn't. Document everything. 23 soldiers, the woman said quietly. 8 hours. No reinforcements. You kept them all alive when the statistical probability was 0 survivors. That wasn't luck, Specialist Cross. That was exactly what we were looking for. Raina's throat closed. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. You let them die. The ones we lost before we held the compound. Martinez, Jackson, those men died because you wanted to test me? We didn't let anyone die. We created a tactical scenario with acceptable risk parameters. Those casualties occurred during initial contact, before the siege began, before you took command, and I didn't take command. I was a medic. You gave orders. Your platoon leader was wounded in the first 10 minutes. Your platoon sergeant was dead in 20, and you stepped up, made calls that kept 23 soldiers breathing when they should have been corpses. The woman's voice never changed, never wavered. That's what we needed to see. That's what makes you valuable. Raina wanted to throw up, wanted to punch this woman in her perfect teeth, wanted to scream. Instead, she just stood there, holding a folder that said her trauma had been manufactured, that the nightmares she'd carried for 6 years had been someone's science project. Who authorized this? People above my clearance level, people who don't exist on paper. And Vance? Was he part of it? No. Vance was a separate problem, pure greed, but his activities helped mask ours. While everyone was watching his corruption, we were running our program quietly. The woman finally took a step closer. The question isn't what happened then, Specialist. It's what happens now. Because you have a choice to make. What choice? You can walk away. Take Agent Rain's job. Hunt corrupt officers. Live with the comfortable lie that Kandahar was just bad luck, and you're a hero who survived it. The woman paused. Or you can know the truth, all of it, and help us finish what we started. Finish what? Building a program, an elite unit of operators who can function in scenarios where normal soldiers fail. People like you. The Ghost was proof of concept. Now we want to make it systematic. Raina's stomach turned. You want to traumatize more soldiers, create more ghosts. We want to save lives. Every operator we identify through this program will save dozens, maybe hundreds, in the field. Yes, the testing is harsh, but war is harsher. And if we can identify the people who'll hold the line when it matters most, we reduce casualties across the board. That's not your call to make. It's not yours either, but it's happening whether you join us or not. The only question is whether you're inside the system, with knowledge and influence, or outside it, wondering what we're doing. Raina looked down at the folder again, at the clinical language describing her worst day, the day that had broken her and remade her into something harder, something that didn't sleep right, didn't feel right. And they'd engineered it. Who else knows about this? She asked. Approximately 17 people, all with clearances higher than yours will ever be. Does Ethan know? The woman hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Colonel Kane was part of a different initiative. His testing came later, different parameters. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting without clearance. Raina closed the folder, looked at the woman's face, smooth, unreadable, the face of someone who'd learned to deliver terrible news without flinching. What's your name? Dr. Elizabeth Graves, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, Behavioral Sciences Division. DARPA. You're running Black Ops psych experiments on American soldiers. We're identifying exceptional individuals for high-value assignments. There's a difference. No, Raina said quietly. There really isn't. She pushed past Graves, folder still in hand, and walked down the corridor. Her legs were working again, but they felt disconnected from her body, like she was piloting a meat puppet that used to be Raina Cross. Behind her, Graves called out, "You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires. And Specialist, If you try to expose this program, you won't succeed. You'll just destroy your own credibility. People like me don't exist. Documents like that don't exist. And soldiers who talk about classified programs they shouldn't know about tend to have unfortunate accidents. Raina didn't turn around, just kept walking until she found an empty room, locked the door, and sat on the floor with her back against the wall. The folder sat in her lap. Proof. Evidence. The truth she'd spent 6 years running from, except it was worse than she'd ever imagined. She'd thought Kandahar broke her. Turned out someone had broken her on purpose. She must have sat there for an hour, maybe 2. Time felt slippery. Eventually, someone knocked. "Ray?" Ethan's voice. "You in there?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. "Hayes said you looked bad, like you'd seen a ghost." A pause. "Let me in, please." Raina stood, unlocked the door. Ethan was in his wheelchair, IV pole attached, looking like hell, but awake and alert. He took one look at her face, and his expression changed. "What happened?" She handed him the folder. He opened it, started reading. His face went pale, then gray. When he reached page 3, his hands started shaking. This can't be. It is. DARPA. Black Ops Psych program. They engineered Kandahar to test me, find out if I could handle extreme stress, create the ghost. Raina's voice was hollow. "I thought I survived something. Turns out I passed an audition." Ethan kept reading, page after page. When he finished, he closed the folder and just sat there, staring at nothing. "How many others?" he asked finally. She didn't say, but it's systematic. They're building a program, and they want me to help. "Are you going to?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to expose them, burn the whole thing down. But she's right. I'd lose. They'd bury me, discredit me, make me disappear." Ethan looked up at her. "What does the other part want?" "The other part wants to know how deep this goes. Who else was tested? Whether you were one of them." His expression flickered, just for a second. But she caught it. "Ethan." "Ray, were you?" He didn't answer, which was an answer. Raina felt something crack inside her chest. "When?" "Somalia. 4 years ago. My team was sent to extract a high-value target. Intel was wrong. Or not wrong, just selectively accurate." His voice was flat, distant. "We walked into a trap, lost 3 operators, fought our way out anyway, completed the mission. And 6 months later, I got promoted to a classified unit that officially doesn't exist." "They tested you too." "Yeah, they did. And I passed. Just like you. Just like whoever else they're building this program around." He looked at her. "I didn't know about Kandahar, I swear. I didn't know they'd done it to you until right now, but I knew the program existed, and I didn't tell you." "Why not?" "Because you got out. You were free. And I thought if you didn't know, you could actually have a normal life, be someone other than the ghost." Raina laughed. It came out bitter. "Guess that didn't work out." "No, it didn't." Ethan wheeled closer. "But here's the thing, Ray. Whether they engineered it or not, you still saved those soldiers. You still made the calls. You still did the impossible. The circumstances don't change that. The circumstances are everything. If they put us there, if they sacrificed men to test us, then we're not heroes. We're lab rats who performed well. Maybe. But we're lab rats who saved lives. And if we join their program, we can make sure the next tests don't kill anyone. We can push back from the inside, make it less brutal, more ethical." He paused. "Or we can walk away and they'll find someone else. Someone who doesn't give a damn about the human cost." Raina wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that there was no way to make this ethical, that the only right choice was to refuse. But she couldn't. Because he was right. Walking away meant letting someone worse take her place. "I need time to think," she said. "You've got 48 hours. Use them." Ethan reached out, took her hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But Ray, don't let this break you. Again, they already did that once, so don't give them a second shot." He wheeled away, leaving her alone with the folder and the weight of a choice that had no good answer. She found Hawthorne in his office 2 hours later. He was on the phone, arguing with someone about Vance's transfer to federal custody. When he saw her, he held up a finger, 1 minute, and finished the call. Specialist, what can I do for you? I need to talk to Vance. Hawthorne blinked. Why? Because I need to know if he was part of something bigger, something that goes beyond arms deals and corruption. Like what? Raina hesitated. Graves had warned her. Exposing the program meant consequences, but Hawthorne deserved to know, at least part of it. Like a Black Ops psych program that's been testing soldiers without their knowledge, creating scenarios designed to identify high performers under extreme stress. Kandahar might have been one. Yemen might have been another. Hawthorne's expression went from confused to horrified in 3 seconds flat. Are you telling me Kandahar was engineered? I'm telling you, someone handed me a classified document that says exactly that, and I need to know if Vance was involved. If his corruption was cover for something darker. Hawthorne stood, started pacing. If what you're saying is true, this is bigger than Vance, bigger than Morrison's investigation. This is above your clearance level. I know. But Vance might know something. He was Deputy Director of Special Operations. He had access. If anyone can confirm whether this program exists, it's him. Hawthorne stopped pacing, looked at her hard. If I arrange this conversation and it goes sideways, both our careers are over, maybe our lives. I know. And you still want to do it? I need to do it. Because if this program exists, if they're still testing soldiers, someone has to stop them, or at least slow them down. Hawthorne was quiet for a long time. Then he picked up the phone. Get me the detention supervisor. I need a prisoner transport arranged. Discreet. 1 visitor. Maximum security protocols. He hung up, looked at Raina. You've got 30 minutes with Vance. That's it. And whatever he tells you, it stays between us until we figure out how to move forward. Understood? Understood. Eat. They took her to Vance in an interrogation room. Concrete walls, metal table, 2 chairs. He was cuffed to the table, shoulder bandaged, looking older and smaller than he had on the carrier. The uniform was gone. Now he wore orange scrubs, prisoner clothes. When he saw Raina, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or satisfaction. The ghost. Come to gloat? Come to ask questions. And why would I answer them? Because you're looking at 25 to life for treason. Because your assets are frozen, your reputation is destroyed, and everyone you thought was loyal just threw you under the bus. You've got nothing left to lose and nowhere to go. Raina sat across from him. But if you help me, I can make sure the story that gets told is more complicated than greedy general sells out his country. I can make sure people know there were bigger forces at play. Vance studied her. You're talking about DARPA. Raina's pulse kicked up. He knew. What do you know about their program? Enough to stay out of it. Enough to know that some of the operations I was running weren't entirely my idea. That certain scenarios were designed by people above my clearance. Vance leaned forward as far as the cuffs allowed. You think I'm the villain here? I was just the money man, the facilitator. The real villains are the ones who decided that breaking soldiers was acceptable collateral damage for creating better warriors. Were you part of the Kandahar operation? No, that was before my time in Special Operations Command. But I heard about it. Heard about the medic who kept a platoon alive against impossible odds. Heard how they fast-tracked her for psychological evaluation afterward. How she declined. He smiled, but it was empty. They wanted you, Cross. And when you walked away, they marked you as an asset for future use. That's why when Kane needed someone he could trust, your name came up. That's why they let you onto the Reagan. They were watching to see if the ghost was still there. Raina's hands clenched. Yemen. Was that a test too? Yemen was me trying to cover my tracks. My buyers got nervous, wanted proof I could deliver. So I sent Kane's team into an ambush. Told myself it was just business, just survival. His voice went quiet. But yeah, DARPA had flagged that team. Called it a high-value training scenario. I don't know what they were testing. Maybe leadership under catastrophic failure. Maybe resilience after loss. They don't tell people like me the details. They just create the conditions and watch what happens. And you went along with it. I got paid to go along with it. To make sure operations failed in specific ways, to provide cover when questions got asked. I wasn't the architect, Cross. I was just the contractor. Raina wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, but she kept her voice level. Give me names. Who runs the program? Who authorized Kandahar? I can't. I never met them face to face. Everything was through encrypted channels, coded emails, offshore payments. Vance paused. But I can tell you this. The program's been running for at least a decade, maybe longer. And it's not just military. They're testing civilian first responders too, firefighters, paramedics, anyone who operates under extreme stress. Building a database of people who don't break. For what purpose? What do you think? Control? Power? Having a list of people you can call on when normal humans can't handle the job. And if those people don't know they're being manipulated, they're even more useful. They think they're heroes, think they're special, never realize they're just tools. Raina stood. She'd heard enough, more than enough. You're going to testify. Everything you just told me you're going to tell a federal judge. Under oath. And if I don't? Then I make sure your cellmate knows you sold out American soldiers for money. See how long you last. Vance's expression didn't change. You're more like me than you want to admit, Ghost. We both crossed lines. We both sacrificed people for the mission. The only difference is I got paid and you got a medal you refused to accept. No, the difference is I saved people. You killed them. Don't ever forget that. She left before he could respond. Found Hawthorne waiting outside. Well? He confirmed it. DARPA's running a Black Ops psych program, testing soldiers and civilians without consent, creating scenarios designed to fail, building a database of high performers. She looked at him. And he'll testify. Under immunity, probably, but he'll testify. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. This is bigger than I thought. If we expose this, it's going to bring down people we've never heard of, people with real power. Good. Let them fall. Ray, think about this. You expose DARPA. You become a target. They have resources we can't imagine. Legal teams, Black Ops assets. They'll bury you so deep no one will ever find the body. Then I'll make enough noise on the way down that someone hears. Morrison, the press, someone. Raina met his eyes. I didn't survive Kandahar just to let the people who engineered it keep doing it to others. This ends. Now. Hawthorne looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but we do this smart. We don't just expose them, we make sure the exposure sticks. That means evidence, documentation, witnesses. And we need to move fast before they realize what we're doing and shut us down. How fast? 72 hours. That's how long until Vance's arraignment. If we're going to include the DARPA angle in the charges, we need everything ready by then. He pulled out his phone. I'll coordinate with Morrison and Vega. You work with Ethan. Find anyone else who might have been tested. Build a pattern. And Ray? Watch your back. If DARPA knows you're coming for them, they'll come for you first. Well, the next 72 hours were a blur. Raina and Ethan worked around the clock, cross-referencing mission reports with casualty patterns, looking for operations that fit the profile. Scenarios where support was delayed, where intelligence was wrong, where outcomes defied statistical probability because someone exceptional stepped up. They found 11 possibles, contacted 9, 3 agreed to talk. A firefighter in Oregon who'd saved 14 people from a building collapse after his entire team was cut off by falling debris. He'd thought it was bad luck. Turned out the building had been flagged for demolition 6 months earlier. Someone had delayed it. A paramedic in Texas who'd kept a mass casualty scene from turning into complete chaos after a chemical spill. She'd coordinated 40 responders and saved 32 lives. The chemical company had known about the leak for weeks. Done nothing. An Army Ranger in Georgia who'd extracted his team from an ambush in Syria after their air support mysteriously failed. He'd thought it was equipment malfunction. It wasn't. Every story was the same, exceptional performance under impossible conditions, followed by quiet promotions, increased clearances, offers to join units that didn't officially exist, and underneath it all the same invisible hand, creating disaster, watching who survived, cataloging the results. Raina documented everything, built timelines, cross-referenced dates with DARPA budget allocations, public records buried in defense appropriations. The pattern was clear. Every spike in funding corresponded to a cluster of training scenarios. Every line item marked behavioral research lined up with operations that killed people. They were experimenting on humans and billing taxpayers for it. Morrison took the evidence and ran with it, called emergency hearings, subpoenaed DARPA officials, demanded answers. The agency stonewalled, claimed everything was classified, refused to confirm or deny, threatened national security implications. But Vance's testimony broke the dam. He walked into a closed session of the Senate Armed Services Committee, sat in the witness chair and told them everything: the payments, the operations, the coded communications, the offshore accounts that trace back to DARPA shell companies. And he named names, not the architects, he didn't know them, but the facilitators, the mid-level bureaucrats who'd arranged logistics, the operational planners who'd designed scenarios, the financial officers who'd moved money. 17 people. Within 48 hours, 12 were in custody. 3 fled the country. 2 died in accidents that weren't accidents. And Dr. Elizabeth Graves disappeared. No forwarding address, no trace, like she'd never existed. But her program didn't disappear. It went underground, deeper, darker, protected by people whose names would never appear in hearings or documents. Raina knew it wasn't over, not really, but it was exposed, and exposure was light, and in light, even shadows had to be more careful. Well, the arraignment was a media circus. Federal courthouse in D.C., cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions. Raina stayed in the back of the courtroom, watching as Vance was led in wearing a suit instead of scrubs, trying to look dignified, failing. The charges were read: treason, conspiracy, murder, arms trafficking, and a new one: conspiracy to conduct unethical human experimentation on U.S. military personnel. That last charge made the room go silent. Vance pled not guilty. His lawyer argued entrapment, coercion, that he'd been manipulated by forces beyond his control. The judge wasn't buying it. Bail was denied. Trial date set for 6 months out. As they led him away, Vance looked back, found Raina in the crowd. Their eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't sneer, just nodded once. Acknowledgement. Or maybe respect. Then he was gone. Morrison found Raina in the corridor afterward. She looked exhausted but satisfied. We got him. And we got enough evidence to keep digging. DARPA's going to be under a microscope for years. That's not enough. It's what we have. The people at the top are protected. We'll never touch them. But their program is damaged, public now, harder to run in the shadows. Morrison paused. That's a win, specialist. Take it. What about the people they tested? The ones who don't know? We're setting up a victim notification system. Anyone who might have been part of the program will be contacted, offered counseling, compensation. It's not justice, but it's something. Raina nodded. It wasn't enough. Would never be enough. But Morrison was right. It was something. What about you? Morrison asked. Agent Rains' offer still stands. So does Hawthorne's. You've got options. I know. But I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not being tested, when I'm not proving myself, when I'm just me. Morrison smiled. Take all the time you need. You've earned it. Raina flew back to Boston 2 days later. Not because she was going back to Blackridge. She wasn't. But because she'd left things unfinished. And she needed closure. She walked into the ER on a Tuesday night. Same controlled chaos, same sounds and smells. But different now. She was different. Diane saw her first, did a double take. Cross? What are you doing here? Came to pick up my last paycheck. Oh, right. I'll get that processed. Diane looked uncomfortable. Look, about before. About how we treated you. I didn't know, I know. Nobody did. That was the point. Dr. Voss appeared from a trauma bay, saw her, and went pale. Raina. Hey, I heard about everything. That's pretty intense. Yeah, it was. Listen, if you ever want to come back, I'm sure we could. I'm not coming back. Oh, okay. Well, if you change your mind. He looked like he wanted to say more. Couldn't figure out how. Eventually just walked away. Marcus was in his office. He stood when she entered. Raina, I'm glad you came. Just here for the paycheck. Right, of course. He handed her an envelope. It's all there. Plus unused vacation time. And a bonus. Seemed appropriate. She took it. Thanks. I meant what I said on the phone. I'm sorry for not seeing what you were capable of, for treating you like you were less than you are. Marcus paused. If it means anything, you changed how I run this department. We're training staff on combat triage now, on high-stress protocols, because if someone like you was here and we didn't use you properly, we're probably missing others too. Raina almost smiled. That's good. People like me are out there. You just have to know how to see them. Will you tell me what happened, the real story? No, it's classified. And honestly, you're better off not knowing. Fair enough, Marcus held out his hand. Thank you for everything you did here, even if we didn't appreciate it at the time. She shook his hand, then left. On her way out, she passed Bay 1, the same bay where she'd saved the cardiac arrest patient 3 months ago, where everything had started to unravel or come together. Hard to tell which. A new patient was on the gurney. Younger nurse, someone Raina didn't recognize, was fumbling with an IV line, shaking, scared. You're in the vein, Raina said quietly. Just push it home. Slow and steady. The nurse looked up, startled. How do you... I used to work here. You've got this. Trust your hands. The nurse nodded, pushed the line, and got it. The patient stabilized. Crisis averted. Raina walked out before anyone could ask questions, before she could get pulled back in. Outside, the Boston night was cold and clear. She stood on the sidewalk, breathing air that didn't smell like antiseptic, and pulled out her phone. 2 messages waiting. One from Hawthorne. Offer still stands. Call me when you're ready. One from Ethan. Heading to Walter Reed for long-term recovery. Could use a visitor. Could use a friend. She stared at both messages. 2 paths. 2 futures. One official with structure and purpose and the weight of the system behind it. One personal with uncertainty and connection and the weight of shared trauma. Or maybe a third path. One she hadn't seen yet. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then did. Specialist Cross? A male voice. Older. Calm. My name is Richard Holbrook. I'm a defense attorney. I represent clients who've been harmed by government programs, wrongful experiments, unethical testing. I understand you might have information that could help several ongoing cases. How did you get this number? Senator Morrison gave it to me, with your permission, of course. She thought you might be interested in helping others who went through what you did, filing civil suits, getting compensation, forcing systemic change through the courts. Raina leaned against the hospital wall. I'm not interested in money. Neither are most of my clients. They're interested in accountability, in making sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Holbrook paused. I've spent 20 years fighting these battles. I win about half, lose the rest. But every case we file makes them more careful, more afraid. And fear is the beginning of change. You're asking me to be a plaintiff. I'm asking if you want justice. Real justice. The kind that comes with depositions and discovery and public trials. The kind that forces people to admit what they did. Another pause. You don't have to decide now. But think about it. And if you want to talk, call me. He hung up. Raina stood there, phone in hand, staring at the hospital entrance. 3 paths. Each one different. Each one pulling at something inside her. She started walking. Didn't know where. Just knew she needed to move. Needed to think. Needed to figure out who Raina Cross was when she wasn't running. Wasn't hiding. Wasn't being tested. Just herself. She'd walked 6 blocks when her phone rang again. Different number. This one she recognized. Hayes? Specialist, where are you? Boston, why? Because we have a problem, a big one. His voice was tight, urgent. Dr. Graves. She didn't disappear, she's still operational, and she just activated a scenario. Raina's blood went cold. Where? Seattle. Mass casualty event, chemical release in a subway station. First responders on scene report communications failures, equipment malfunctions, and confusion about contamination protocols. Hayes paused. It's Kandahar all over again. Different location, same blueprint, and she's watching to see who steps up. How do you know it's her? Because she sent a message, through encrypted channels, to you. Hayes's voice went even quieter. She says if you want to stop the program, you need to see it in action first. Understand what they're building, and she's giving you 12 hours to get to Seattle before the test concludes. That's a trap. Of course it's a trap, but it's also an opportunity. If we can document an active scenario, if we can prove they're still running operations, we can bring down the entire network, not just Vance, everyone. Raina closed her eyes, felt the weight settling back on her shoulders. The mission, the responsibility, the burden of being someone who could do things others couldn't. The ghost. I'll be there in 6 hours. I'm flying in with a team. We'll coordinate on the ground. And Ray, be careful. If Graves is running point on this, she's desperate, and desperate people make fatal mistakes. The call ended. Raina stood on a Boston street corner, cold wind cutting through her jacket, and made a decision. She couldn't walk away. Couldn't pretend the program didn't exist just because she wanted peace. Couldn't let more people get tested, traumatized, turned into weapons without their consent. The ghost wasn't retired. She'd just been gathering intel. Raina pulled up her Maps app, found the nearest airport, booked a flight to Seattle. One way. Open return. Because she didn't know how long this would take. Didn't know if she'd survive it. Didn't know if stopping Graves meant crossing lines she'd promised herself she wouldn't cross again. But she knew one thing. She was done being tested. Now she was going to test them back. And when she was finished, either the program would be destroyed or she would be. Either way, this ended in Seattle. She started walking toward the airport. Phone in hand, finger hovering over Ethan's contact. She should tell him, should let him know where she was going, what she was walking into. But she didn't call. Because if this went wrong, if Graves had really set a trap and Raina didn't make it out, she didn't want his last memory of her to be a goodbye. Better to let him think she was still out there, still fighting, still alive. The ghost fading into the darkness one more time. Except this time she wasn't fading, she was hunting. And Dr. Elizabeth Graves was about to learn what happened when you turned someone into a weapon and then forgot they could point themselves at you. Seattle was 12 hours away. Raina had work to do. Seattle was 12 hours away. Raina had work to do. The flight landed at SeaTac just after dawn. Gray sky, drizzle coating everything. The Pacific Northwest waking up to news coverage of a chemical incident in the downtown transit system. Raina watched it on her phone while waiting for her bag. Reporters standing behind police tape, hazmat teams moving through Pioneer Square Station, officials promising the situation was contained. Except it wasn't. Not if Graves was running it. Hayes met her outside baggage claim, looking like he hadn't slept. Arm still in a sling, but his eyes were sharp. Status? Raina asked. 43 people affected. Unknown chemical agent. First responders couldn't identify it, which delayed treatment protocols. Chaos lasted about 90 minutes before someone on scene figured out it was a modified tear gas compound. Painful, but not lethal. Hayes started walking toward the parking garage. By the time they stabilized everyone, the damage was done. 3 people went into cardiac arrest from panic. 1 died. Raina's jaw tightened. Graves killed someone. Technically, the scenario killed someone. Graves will argue she just created conditions, that the death was due to poor response, not her design. Hayes unlocked a black SUV. But yeah, she killed someone. They climbed in. Hayes drove, navigating morning traffic while Raina pulled up the incident reports on a tablet he'd brought. Who stepped up? She asked. Paramedic named Jordan Kellerman, 28 years old, 5 years on the job. When everyone else was panicking, he started organizing, triaged patients, coordinated with hazmat, kept the situation from getting worse. Hayes glanced at her. Sound familiar? He's her next ghost. That's my guess. And if we can prove it, if we can show she engineered this scenario specifically to test him, we've got her. How do we prove it? We need to show foreknowledge, that she knew the chemical release would happen, that she knew Kellerman would be on shift, that she positioned assets to observe and document. Hayes pulled into a parking structure near the transit station. Vega's been working the digital angle, tracking communications, financial transactions, personnel movements. If Graves left a trail, Vega will find it. They walked toward Pioneer Square Station. The area was still cordoned off, but Hayes flashed credentials, federal investigator, Authorized access. The officer waved them through. Inside, the station was empty except for cleanup crews and a few lingering cops. The chemical smell was mostly gone, replaced by industrial disinfectant. Raina moved through the space, reading it the way she'd read 100 combat zones, exit points, choke points, where people would cluster when panic hit. Where was the release? She asked. Hayes pointed to a maintenance tunnel entrance. Ventilation system. Someone placed a modified smoke grenade in the ductwork. Timed detonation. By the time anyone realized what was happening, half the platform was contaminated. Wait, who found the device? Bomb squad. After the fact. But here's the thing. It was sophisticated. Military-grade timing mechanism. Custom chemical mixture. Not something you buy at a hardware store. DARPA has access to that kind of hardware. Exactly. Hayes led her toward the tunnel entrance. And get this. The maintenance schedule was altered 2 days ago. Someone pushed back the routine inspection so the device wouldn't be found early. Can you trace who made the change? Already did. Came from a contractor account. Fake credentials. But the IP address traced back to a server farm in Virginia, same one DARPA uses for classified communications. Raina felt the pieces clicking into place. She's getting sloppy, or arrogant. Both, probably. She thinks she's untouchable. Hayes checked his phone. Vega just sent coordinates. She found something. Warehouse in Tacoma. Rented 3 weeks ago by a shell company with DARPA ties. That's where she's watching from. That's what we think. But Ray, if we go in there, we need to be smart. Graves isn't alone. She'll have security, maybe operators. And if she knows we're coming, she already knows. She invited me here. Raina headed back toward the exit. The question is whether she's ready for what happens next. The warehouse was industrial, nondescript, tucked between shipping containers and rail yards where nobody asked questions. Hayes parked 2 blocks away, and they approached on foot. Vega's coordinating with FBI, Hayes said quietly. They'll be here in 20 minutes with a full tactical team. We're supposed to wait. We're not waiting. 20 minutes gives Graves time to destroy evidence, to disappear. Again. Raina pulled the pistol Hayes had given her, checked the chamber. You can wait if you want. You know I'm not doing that. They moved around the perimeter, found a side entrance, service door, electronic lock. Hayes pulled a bypass tool from his jacket, worked it for 30 seconds. The lock clicked. Inside was dark. Concrete floor, high ceilings, the smell of dust and old metal. They moved carefully, weapons up, using hand signals. Raina's training was coming back, muscle memory from a life she'd tried to leave behind. But it fit her now, comfortable, like putting on an old coat. They found the stairs, climbed to the second floor, light spilling from under a door at the end of the corridor. Voices inside. Raina counted 2, maybe 3 people. She and Hayes positioned themselves on either side of the door. Hayes counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. He kicked it open. The room was set up like a command center. Computers, monitors, communications equipment. 3 people inside. 2 contractors in tactical gear, hands moving toward weapons. And Dr. Elizabeth Graves standing beside a bank of screens showing live feeds from Pioneer Square Station. Don't, Raina said, weapon trained on the contractors. You move, you die. The contractors froze. Graves turned slowly, and her expression was almost amused. Specialist Cross, right on time. On the ground, all of you, now. The contractors looked at Graves. She nodded. They lowered themselves, hands visible. Graves stayed standing. I said on the ground. I heard you. I'm choosing not to comply. Graves gestured to the monitors. Because in about 90 seconds, you're going to have bigger problems than me. Raina glanced at the screens. Most showed the transit station, empty now, cleaned, secured. But one showed something else. A different location, crowded. Shopping mall, looked like. And in the center of the frame, a man in a maintenance uniform was placing something in a trash can. What is that? Another test. Different subject. Different scenario. Set to activate in 60 seconds. Graves's voice was calm, clinical. You can arrest me, or you can stop it. But you can't do both. Choose. Raina's pulse spiked. Hayes, call it in. Get police to that location now. Hayes was already on his radio. I need units at Bellevue Square Mall, east entrance, possible explosive device. They won't make it in time, Graves said. Response time is 8 minutes minimum. The device activates in 45 seconds. But I can stop it remotely, if you let me walk out of here. Raina kept her weapon trained on Graves. Her mind was racing. This was the play. The trap inside the trap. Graves had known Raina would come, had prepared leverage. A hostage situation where the hostages didn't even know they were in danger. You're bluffing. Am I? Graves pulled out her phone, showed the screen, a countdown timer, 38 seconds. That's a real device. Real people. Real consequences. So what's it going to be, Specialist? Justice or lives? You can't have both. Hayes was still on the radio coordinating response, but his face said it all. They weren't going to make it. 29 seconds. Raina's finger was on the trigger. One shot. Graves goes down. But the device would still activate. People would still die. And Graves would become a martyr. A victim of an unstable veteran who murdered her in cold blood. 23 seconds. What do you want? Raina asked. To walk out. To disappear. To continue my work somewhere you can't reach. Graves tilted her head. I'm building something important, Cross. Creating a system that will save thousands of lives by identifying the people who can handle what others can't. You're proof the system works. You should be helping me, not hunting me. I'm proof that trauma creates broken people, not heroes. You're alive. The 23 soldiers you saved in Kandahar are alive. Jordan Kellerman saved 43 people this morning. How many more lives do you need saved before you admit I'm right? 16 seconds. Raina looked at Hayes. He was watching her, waiting. She could see it in his eyes. Whatever she decided, he'd back her, even if it meant letting Graves walk. Stop the device, Raina said. Let me leave first. Stop it now, or I shoot you and pray someone else can disarm it. Graves studied her face, looking for the lie, looking for weakness, found neither. 11 seconds. Graves tapped her phone. The countdown stopped. 9 seconds remaining. Frozen. Happy? She asked. Hayes, confirm. Hayes spoke into his radio, listened. Bomb squad's on site. Device is neutralized. You were right. It was real. Raina lowered her weapon, just slightly. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit terrorism, reckless endangerment, and about 40 other charges I'll think of later. Graves smiled. You really think this is over? You think arresting me stops the program? I'm one researcher, one administrator. There are dozens like me. Hundreds of projects. You're fighting a system that's bigger than both of us. Then I'll fight the system. One project at a time, one researcher at a time, until there's nothing left. Raina stepped closer. You turned me into a weapon. Congratulations. Now you get to see what that weapon does when it's pointed at you. Footsteps on the stairs. Loud. Multiple. The FBI tactical team Hayes had called. They flooded in, weapons up, shouting commands. The contractors were cuffed immediately. Graves was surrounded. An agent approached Raina. We'll take it from here, ma'am. Raina holstered her weapon, watched as they led Graves away. She didn't fight, didn't protest, just looked back once, and her expression was almost respectful. You'll never stop all of us, she said quietly. I don't need to stop all of you. Just enough that the rest get scared. Scared people make mistakes, and mistakes create evidence, and evidence puts you in a cell where you belong. Graves was taken away. Hayes came up beside Raina, looking exhausted but relieved. That was close. Too close. Raina looked at the monitors, at the frozen countdown on the screen. She was willing to kill people just to escape. That's not a scientist. That's a sociopath. Same thing sometimes. Hayes paused. Vega's bringing in a forensic team. Everything in this warehouse, computers, documents, communications logs, it's all evidence. Between this and Vance's testimony, we can map the entire network. Everyone who was involved, everyone who knew. And then what? They disappear into classified programs we can't touch? Some of them, yeah, but not all. And the ones we can touch, the Vances and Graveses of the world, they'll pay. Hayes looked at her. You did good today, Ray. You stopped her. Saved lives. That's the mission. The mission's not over until the program's dead. Then we keep fighting, but maybe take a breath first? You've been running for 72 hours straight. Reyna wanted to argue, wanted to say there was no time, that every moment they delayed meant another test, another victim. But Hayes was right. She was running on fumes and adrenaline. If she didn't stop, she'd collapse, or make a mistake that got someone killed. Okay, one breath, then we keep moving. They flew back to D.C. that afternoon. Vega met them at the airport, walking with a cane now, but moving better than expected. Graves is in federal custody, Vega said. She's already asked for a lawyer, probably going to fight this for years. Let her fight. We have evidence. We have witnesses. We have her dead to rights. Reyna climbed into Vega's car. What about the others, the network? We've identified 23 people connected to the program. 8 are in custody. 6 are cooperating in exchange for immunity. The rest are running or hiding. Vega pulled into traffic. It's going to take months to unravel everything, maybe years, but it's happening. The program's compromised, and everyone involved knows it. That's not enough. No, but it's a start. Vega glanced at her. Morrison wants to see you. She's calling a press conference tomorrow. Plans to expose the entire program publicly. Names, operations, everything we've uncovered. She wants you there. Why? Because you're the face of this. The victim who fought back. The ghost who refused to stay silent. Vega paused. And because the public needs to see that the people who were tested aren't broken, that they're strong, that they survived. Reyna didn't answer. The idea of standing in front of cameras, telling her story, letting the world see her scars, it made her stomach turn. But she understood why it mattered. Visibility was protection. Once the story was public, DARPA couldn't disappear her, couldn't silence her. I'll be there, she said finally. The press conference was held in the Senate press gallery. Wall-to-wall reporters, cameras everywhere, the air thick with anticipation. Morrison stood at the podium, flanked by other members of the Armed Services Committee. Reyna sat in the second row, next to Ethan, who'd insisted on attending despite still being in recovery. And Hayes. Morrison started talking, explained the program in broad strokes, the testing, the engineered scenarios, the casualties, the cover-ups. She named Vance, named Graves, named 6 others who were in custody or had fled. The room erupted. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing. Morrison held up a hand. I know you have questions, but before I take them, I want you to hear from someone who lived through this program, someone who was tested, traumatized, and turned into a weapon without her consent, and who's now dedicated to making sure it never happens to anyone else. She looked at Reyna, nodded. Reyna stood, walked to the podium. The lights were blinding, the cameras were invasive, but she kept her face neutral, her voice steady. My name is Reyna Cross. 6 years ago, I was a combat medic in Afghanistan. I was deployed to a compound in Kandahar with 23 other soldiers. We were told it was a routine patrol. It wasn't. She told them about the siege, the 8 hours, the choices she'd made, the soldiers she'd saved and the ones she couldn't. She told them about walking away afterward, about hiding in a civilian hospital, about being treated like she was nothing. And then she told them the truth. I found out 3 weeks ago that Kandahar wasn't an accident. It was a test, designed by a classified DARPA program to identify soldiers who could function under extreme stress. They engineered the scenario. They delayed our support. They watched us fight for our lives. And they documented who survived. The room was silent now. Every reporter leaning forward, every camera focused. I'm not the only one. There are dozens, maybe hundreds, of soldiers and first responders who've been tested without their knowledge. Some of them know now. Most don't. But every one of them deserves the truth. And every person responsible for this program deserves to be held accountable. She paused. Let it sink in. I'm here today because I'm not hiding anymore. Because the people who tried to break me need to understand that they failed. I'm not broken. I'm not a weapon. I'm a person who survived something no one should have to survive, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure no one else does. She stepped back. The room erupted again, questions flying. Morrison stepped in, started fielding them. Reyna walked back to her seat, legs shaking. Ethan reached over, squeezed her hand. That was perfect. That was terrifying. Same thing, sometimes. Pod. The fallout was immediate and massive. News networks ran the story for days. Investigative journalists dug into DARPA's history, found dozens of questionable programs, raised hell with congressional oversight committees. Public pressure mounted. Heads rolled. The Secretary of Defense resigned. 3 high-ranking officials were fired. DARPA's budget was slashed, its programs put under intense scrutiny. The Behavioral Sciences Division was shut down entirely. Graves went to trial 4 months later. Federal court, public proceedings, cameras in the courtroom. The evidence was overwhelming. She was convicted on 18 counts: conspiracy, reckless endangerment, fraud, obstruction, sentenced to 35 years, no parole. Vance got 40. 6 others from the network were convicted. 2 cut deals. The rest disappeared into the system, transferred to classified facilities, their cases sealed, their fates unknown. Raina testified at every trial, told her story over and over until it felt like someone else's life. But each time she saw the impact, saw juries lean forward, saw judges take notes, saw justice, imperfect, incomplete, but real, being served. And slowly, the weight started to lift. 8 months after Seattle, Raina sat in a conference room in Washington with Richard Holbrook, the defense attorney who'd called her in Boston. They'd filed a class action lawsuit against DARPA on behalf of 47 victims of the testing program. The government had fought it for months, but 2 days ago, they'd offered a settlement. Holbrook slid the papers across the table. $20 million, distributed among all plaintiffs, plus a formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing, plus reforms to prevent this from happening again. Raina read through the terms. The money didn't matter, but the acknowledgement did. The reforms did. What's the catch? Non-disclosure agreements. You can't talk about the specifics of your individual cases. Can't name names beyond what's already public. Can't publish memoirs or give interviews without approval. Holbrook paused. It's a gag order dressed up as a settlement. So they pay us to shut up. Essentially. But the reforms are real. Independent oversight. Mandatory ethics reviews. Whistleblower protections. It's not everything, but it's something. Raina set down the papers. What do the other plaintiffs want to do? Most want to take it. They're tired. They want closure. They want to move on with their lives. Holbrook leaned back. But if you want to fight, I'll fight with you. We can turn this down, go to trial, force them to admit everything in open court. How long would that take? 2 years? Maybe 3. And there's no guarantee we win. Raina thought about it. Thought about standing in courtrooms for another 2 years. Reliving Kandahar over and over, fighting a system that had infinite resources and infinite patience. She thought about the other victims, the paramedic, the firefighter, the ranger, who just wanted their lives back. Take the settlement, she said finally, but I'm not signing the NDA. Ray, if you don't sign, you don't get paid. I don't need the money. I need to be able to talk, to warn people, to help the next victims who don't know they're victims yet. She met his eyes. The settlement helps the people who've already been hurt, but I'm thinking about the ones who will be hurt, and they need someone who can speak freely. Holbrook smiled. You're sure about this? I'm sure. He gathered the papers. All right, I'll let them know. You're going to make some powerful people very nervous. Good. Nervous people make mistakes, and I'll be watching when they do. Bet. Raina took the job with Agent Rains, after all. Not the task force hunting military corruption that felt too narrow now. Instead, she joined a new initiative, a victim advocacy program for people who'd been harmed by classified government operations. Her role was simple: be visible, be vocal, help people understand what had happened to them, connect them with resources, legal, medical, psychological, and when necessary, fight the system that had tried to use them. It wasn't combat, wasn't medicine, but it was a different kind of battlefield, and Raina was good at it. She worked out of a small office in D.C., partnered with Hayes, who'd left active duty to join the program, and Vega, who consulted part-time while teaching at Georgetown. They handled 20 cases in the first 6 months. Some ended well, some didn't. But every person they helped was one less victim left in the dark. Ethan recovered fully. Went back to active duty despite Raina's objections, but in a different role. Training, not operations. He said he was done getting shot at. She didn't believe him, but she appreciated the effort. They had dinner once a month, sometimes talked about work, sometimes just sat in comfortable silence. He never pushed her to talk about Kandahar. She never asked about Yemen. Some things were too heavy to carry together, but they understood each other, and that was enough. 1 year after the press conference, Raina flew back to Boston. Not to Blackridge, she was done with that place, but to visit someone who'd reached out. A nurse named Jessica Ramirez, who'd worked at Blackridge during Raina's time there. They met at a coffee shop in Cambridge. Ramirez was younger, nervous, fidgeting with her cup. "Thanks for meeting me," Ramirez said. "I know you're busy." "It's fine. Your email said you needed advice." "Yeah, I think I'm being tested." Ramirez pulled out her phone, showed Raina a series of text messages, job offers, transfers to high-stress units, opportunities that seemed too good to be true. "I'm an ER nurse, good at my job, but not exceptional. And suddenly everyone wants me? After I handled a mass casualty incident last month without falling apart?" Raina felt ice in her stomach. "What happened at the incident?" "Multi-car pileup, 15 casualties. We were short-staffed, communications went down. Equipment malfunctioned. It was chaos. But I kept moving, organized triage, kept people alive until help arrived." Ramirez looked up. "Afterward, people looked at me differently, like I'd done something impossible. And then the offers started." "Did anyone approach you directly? Government? Military?" "No, but there's this one recruiter, keeps calling, says he represents a specialized medical response unit, offers triple my current salary. But he won't give details unless I sign an NDA first." Raina knew that playbook. Don't sign anything. Don't talk to him again. And document everything, every call, every message, every offer. "You think they're targeting me?" "I think you did something exceptional under pressure and someone noticed. Whether it's the old program or a new one, I don't know. But I know the pattern." Raina pulled out a business card. "Call this number. It's a lawyer who handles these cases. He'll protect you. And if they come at you officially, call me. I'll make sure they regret it." Ramirez took the card with shaking hands. "Thank you. I didn't know who else to ask. When I saw your press conference, I thought maybe you'd understand." "I do, and you're going to be okay. Because you know what's happening now. You're not going into this blind like I did." Raina stood. "Stay visible. Stay vocal. Don't let them isolate you, and trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is." They parted ways. Raina walked through Cambridge, past MIT, past the river, thinking about how many others were out there. How many people like Ramirez were being tested right now? How many didn't have someone to warn them? She pulled out her phone, called Hayes. "We need to expand the program," she said when he answered. "Set up a hotline, a website, something people can find when they start noticing the pattern." "Already working on it. Vega's building the site now. Should be live in 2 weeks." Hayes paused. "You okay? You sound wound up." "I just met someone who's being targeted, right now, a year after we supposedly shut down the program. They rebuilt, or they never stopped, just got quieter. Then we get louder. We make so much noise they can't operate in the shadows anymore." "Agreed. But Ray, don't burn yourself out. This is a long fight, marathon, not a sprint." "I know. But every day we wait, someone else gets tested, someone else gets broken. I can't live with that." "You're not responsible for saving everyone." "No, but I'm responsible for trying." 2 years after Kandahar's truth came out, Raina was invited back to Blackridge Medical Center. Not by Marcus. Not by Diane. By the hospital board. They wanted to honor her. Create an award in her name. Fund a training program based on her insights. Turn her trauma into something institutional and respectable. She almost said no, but Ethan convinced her to at least hear them out. So she went. The boardroom was full of people she recognized. Marcus looked older. Diane looked smaller. Dr. Voss wasn't there. He'd left Blackridge 6 months ago, citing personal reasons. Raina suspected he couldn't face her. The board chairman stood. "Ms. Cross, thank you for coming. We wanted to apologize, formally and publicly, for how you were treated during your time here, for not seeing your value, for failing to create an environment where someone of your caliber could thrive." "I didn't need to thrive. I needed to hide. We understand that now, and we want to do better. We've implemented new protocols, combat triage training for all staff, peer support programs, mental health resources. And we want to establish the Reina Cross Excellence Award, given annually to a healthcare worker who demonstrates exceptional performance under pressure. Reina looked around the room, at faces that had dismissed her, ignored her, treated her like dead weight. Now they wanted to put her name on a plaque. "I don't want an award," she said. The chairman blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I don't want my name on anything. I don't want to be honored for surviving trauma you couldn't see. I want you to do better, train better, support your people better, create systems that don't require someone to break before you notice them." She stood. "If you want to honor me, take the money you'd spend on that award and put it into hiring combat veterans. Give them jobs. Give them purpose. Give them a place where their skills matter." Marcus spoke up. "We can do that. We absolutely can do that." "Then do it. And stop asking me to be your symbol. I'm not a symbol. I'm a person who got lucky and is trying to make sure others don't have to get lucky too." She walked out before anyone could respond, found Ethan waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his car. "How'd it go?" he asked. "I told them to take their award and invest in people instead." "Very you. Someone has to keep them honest." Reina climbed into the passenger seat. Can we leave? I'm done with this place." "Where to?" "I don't know. Anywhere but here." Ethan drove. They ended up at a park overlooking the harbor, sat on a bench, watching boats glide past, seagulls circling overhead. The city noise was distant, manageable. "You ever think about stopping?" Ethan asked. "Just walking away from all of it? The advocacy work, the lawsuits, the fighting? Every day. Why don't you?" "Because if I stop, who keeps fighting? Hayes and Vega can't do it alone. And there are people out there right now who don't know they're being tested, who think they're just unlucky, who'll carry that weight for years because no one told them the truth." Reina looked at him. "I can't fix what happened to me, but I can maybe stop it from happening to someone else. That's worth not stopping. Even if it costs you?" "Even then." Ethan nodded slowly. "You're a better person than I am. I wanted revenge. You want prevention. That's bigger. I wanted revenge too. I got it. Vance is in prison. Graves is in prison. The program's exposed. But revenge doesn't fix anything. It just makes you feel better temporarily. Prevention might actually matter." "So what's next?" "I don't know. Keep building the advocacy program. Keep helping people. Keep making noise until the system changes or breaks." She smiled. "What about you? Still pretending you're done getting shot at?" "I might take a training assignment overseas, teaching operators how to survive impossible scenarios. Figured if someone's going to teach them, it should be someone who's been there." "That's good work." "It's something." Ethan stood, stretched. "You hungry? I know a place." "Always hungry." They walked back to the car. As Reina climbed in, her phone buzzed. A message from Agent Rains. "New case. Possible victim in Oregon. Needs immediate contact." Reina stared at the message. Thought about ignoring it, taking the night off, being a normal person for once. But she wasn't normal. Hadn't been for years. Maybe never would be. She typed back, "Send me the details. I'll call them tonight." Ethan glanced over. "Work?" "Always." She pocketed the phone. "But food first. The work can wait an hour." Progress. Baby steps. 3 years after everything started, 3 years after the helicopter landed on the Reagan and Reina's invisible life exploded into visibility, she gave a speech at a veterans conference in San Diego. The room was packed. Soldiers, medics, first responders, people who'd seen things, done things, carried weight they couldn't put down. Reina stood at the podium, looking at faces that mirrored her own. Tired, wary, waiting to see if she was worth listening to or just another talking head. "I'm not going to tell you that what happened to you made you stronger," she started. "I'm not going to say that trauma is a gift or that suffering builds character. That's garbage. Trauma breaks people. It rewires your brain. It steals your sleep. It makes you question everything." The room was silent, listening. "But trauma doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be the only story you tell. You can survive it. You can build a life after it. You can help others avoid it. And that's not weakness. That's not giving up. That's choosing to fight a different battle." She told them about Kandahar, about the years of hiding, about discovering it was all a test, about the choice she'd faced, stay silent and safe or speak up and fight. I chose to fight, not because I'm brave, not because I'm special, but because staying silent felt like dying slowly, and I'd already survived worse. She paused. If you take anything from this talk, take this. You're not alone, you're not broken, and you're not required to be okay. But you are allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to say, this isn't working. You're allowed to build a new life that doesn't revolve around what hurt you. She finished, stepped back. The room erupted in applause. Not polite conference applause, real applause. The kind that came from recognition, from shared experience. Afterward, dozens of people approached her, told their stories, asked for advice, shared contact information. One man, older, graying, eyes haunted, just shook her hand and said, "Thank you for saying it wasn't a gift. I needed to hear that." Raina stayed for hours, talked to everyone who wanted to talk, gave out her card to anyone who needed it. By the time she left, it was dark outside. Hayes was waiting by the car. "You were good in there." "I just told the truth." "That's what made it good." He opened the door for her. Vega called. She has a lead on another DARPA project, different division, similar methodology. Wants to know if you're interested. Raina climbed in, feeling the exhaustion settling into her bones. 3 years of fighting, 3 years of testimony and trials and helping people piece their lives back together. 3 years of being visible when all she'd wanted was to hide. "Yeah," she said, "I'm interested." Because the fight wasn't over. Might never be over. But she'd stopped being the ghost who disappeared. Now she was the ghost who hunted, who exposed, who refused to let the system forget what it had done. And if that meant spending the rest of her life in courtrooms and conference rooms and conversations with traumatized strangers, so be it. She'd survived Kandahar. She'd survived everything after. She could survive this too. 5 years after the carrier. 5 years after her invisible life became a public battle. 5 years after the ghost woke up and refused to go back to sleep. Raina stood on the rooftop of her apartment building in D.C., watching the sun set over the monuments. The city was beautiful from up here, distant, manageable. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. It was usually someone who needed help. "Is this Raina Cross?" "Yes." "My name is David Torres. I'm a firefighter in Phoenix. I was in a situation 3 months ago, building collapse, 12 people trapped, and everything went wrong. But I kept them alive. All of them. And now people are asking me questions I don't know how to answer, offering me jobs I don't understand. And I'm scared I'm being, I don't know, tested." Raina closed her eyes. 5 years. The program was still running, still hunting, still turning tragedy into opportunity. "Tell me everything," she said. And as David Torres told his story, another impossible scenario, another exceptional response, another person marked for something they didn't understand, Raina listened, took notes, made plans, because the work wasn't done. The fight wasn't over. And as long as people like Torres were being targeted, she'd be there, visible, vocal, unbreakable. The ghost wasn't haunting anymore. She was hunting, and she wasn't stopping until the hunters became the hunted. Not for glory, not for recognition, not even for justice. For the people who came after, for the ones who'd never know they were saved. For the future victims who'd get a warning instead of a test. Raina Cross had been dismissed, underestimated, and engineered into a weapon. Now she was using that weapon to destroy the system that created it, and she was just getting started. The sun set. The city lights came on. And somewhere in America, someone was facing an impossible scenario. Someone was being tested without knowing it. Someone was about to become the next ghost. But this time, they wouldn't be alone. Because Raina was watching. And the hunters had finally realized they'd created something they couldn't control. A woman who refused to stay invisible. A weapon that pointed itself at them. A ghost who wouldn't rest until the living were safe. That was her power. Not the trauma. Not the skills. Not the ability to survive. Her power was choosing to fight when she could have hidden. Choosing to speak when she could have stayed silent. Choosing to protect others when she'd barely survived herself. That was strength. Real strength. The kind that didn't come from tests or training or engineering. The kind that came from deciding that your pain would stop with you, that no one else would carry what you carried, that the cycle ended here. Raina finished her call with David Torres, gave him the lawyer's number, gave him Hayes' contact, gave him the website, gave him hope. Then she went inside, made dinner, called Ethan to check in, answered 3 emails from people who needed help, scheduled 2 meetings for next week. Normal life, except it wasn't normal, would never be normal. But it was hers, on her terms, fighting her battles. And that was enough. The ghost had found her purpose, and she was never letting it go.